Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back through the mists of time to walk in the sandaled feet of women who lived thousands of years before shopping malls, coffee makers, or even glass windows existed. You're about to experience what it felt like to wake up as a woman in ancient Mesopotamia, Egypt, or Greece, when every sunrise brought rituals so deeply ingrained that they connected you to goddesses whose names still echo through history. The story may solve mysteries you never had an explanation for, like why certain beauty practices feel so instinctively right, or why bread making seems almost sacred when you really focus on it. So, before you explore the story with me, please take a moment to help me subscribe to the channel, like and share this video, or maybe leave a comment below, but make sure you do it when you really like what I bring to you. I'd love to hear where and when you started watching this video, or perhaps what draws you to these ancient stories of women's lives. Your engagement helps more people discover these forgotten narratives that shaped our world. Now, let's keep the lights as soft as possible. Turn on the fan for a gentle sound to help the story feel more emotional, and let's embark on tonight's journey together. The first pale light filtering through your window isn't electric, it's pure sunlight creeping across mud brick walls that have stood for generations. You're awakening in a world where dawn doesn't announce another day of emails and traffic jams, but rather a continuation of rhythms that have pulsed through your family line since memory began. Your feet touch the cool clay floor, and immediately you know that this day, like every day, begins with rituals that connect you to powers far greater than yourself. You reach for the small bronze mirror beside your sleeping mat, a luxury that marks your family's modest prosperity in this ancient Sumerian city. The reflection shows a face that modern archaeologists would recognize from countless clay figurines, high cheekbones, eyes lined with kohl that doubles as both beauty enhancement and practical protection against desert glare. But this isn't vanity. It's preparation for communion with the divine feminine forces that govern everything from fertility to the flooding of rivers. Your first task requires you to purify yourself with water drawn from the sacred well in your courtyard. This isn't merely washing, it's a ritual cleansing that acknowledges your role as a conduit between the earthly realm and the spiritual dimensions where goddesses like Inanna hold court. The water feels surprisingly warm against your skin, heated by clay vessels that have absorbed yesterday's sun. Each splash carries away not just physical impurities, but spiritual debris from dreams and nighttime wanderings of the soul. The ceramic basin you use for washing was crafted by your own hands during the pottery season, when women gathered to shape clay into vessels that would serve their families throughout the year. Its smooth surface bears the subtle impressions of your fingerprints, marks that will outlast your mortal life by thousands of years. Archaeologists of distant futures will handle this very basin, wondering about the woman who bemade it, never realizing they're touching something imbued with your morning prayers and daily intentions. Historians still argue whether these morning ablutions held more religious significance than practical necessity, but archaeological evidence suggests that water rituals performed by women formed the backbone of community spiritual practice. You're not just getting clean, you're maintaining cosmic balance through acts so fundamental that they've been encoded into human consciousness for millennia. The prayer you whisper while washing your hands follows patterns that linguists trace back to the earliest written languages. These aren't desperate pleas to distant deities, but conversational exchanges with divine forces understood to be as present and immediate as the morning breeze. You speak to Nisaba, goddess of writing and grain, asking her blessing on the day's bread making. You acknowledge Namu, the primordial mother who birthed gods and mortals alike, requesting her protection over your household. What strikes you most about these dawn conversations with divinity is how natural they feel, like greeting neighbours across a garden wall. Ancient women didn't approach their goddesses with the formal reverence that later patriarchal religions would demand. Instead, they maintained relationships characterized by mutual respect and practical reciprocity. You offer small sacrifices, a few drops of honey, some crushed barley, not from fear, but from understanding that divine favour flows both ways in a universe built on interconnected relationships. The honey you drizzle onto your household altar comes from beehives that your family has tended for generations, following techniques that ensure both human sustenance and bee prosperity. These aren't just insects producing sweetness, they're sacred creatures whose complex social structures mirror the divine feminine hierarchies that govern the cosmos. The ancient connection between bees and goddesses runs so deep that priestesses were often called melissae, honey-gatherers who channeled divine wisdom through their communion with these industrious creatures. Your hair requires special attention each morning, braided in patterns that communicate everything from marital status to religious affiliation. These aren't arbitrary fashion choices. They're a complex visual language that allows other women to read your life story at a glance. The small clay beads you weave through your braids aren't mere decoration. They're protective amulets charged with specific intentions. Blue beads ward off the evil eye, red ones enhance fertility, and tiny silver charms invoke the protection of household spirits. The time you spend on these intricate braiding patterns serves a deeper purpose than mere aesthetics. The repetitive motions induce a meditative state that ancient texts describe as hair trance, a form of moving meditation that allows divine messages to flow through your consciousness. Your fingers work automatically through familiar patterns while your mind opens to receive guidance about the day ahead. Sometimes goddess voices whisper warnings about weather changes or neighborhood conflicts. Other times they offer solutions to problems that have been troubling your family. The robes you select from your wooden chest tell another story entirely. The fabric itself represents months of work. Flax grown in fields you helped tend, processed through techniques your grandmother taught you, woven on looms that required both strength and mathematical precision to operate. The dyes that colour your garments come from sources scattered across the known world: indigo from distant trade routes, purple from Mediterranean mollusks, yellow from local saffron flowers that bloom only briefly each spring. Each thread in your garment carries the energy of its origin point: the soil where plants grew, the hands that harvested them, the songs sung during processing. Ancient women understood that clothing was more than protection from elements. It was a wearable prayer that carried intentions and blessings throughout the day. The geometric patterns woven into your robe's border aren't decorative flourishes. They're protective symbols that create energetic shields around your body, deflecting negative influences while amplifying positive ones. As you fasten your belt, a complex affair involving bronze clasps and leather strips that took craftsmen weeks to complete, you're participating in an economic system where women's textile work forms the backbone of international commerce. The simple act of getting dressed connects you to trade networks stretching from Britain to India, to mining operations that extract precious metals from mountains you'll never see, to agricultural innovations that feed entire civilizations. But perhaps the most profound aspect of your morning ritual involves the moment when you step outside to greet the rising sun. This isn't a casual glance at the weather. It's a formal acknowledgement of forces that govern everything from crop cycles to human fertility. You extend your arms toward the eastern horizon, feeling solar energy penetrate your skin and energize systems that modern science is only beginning to understand. Ancient texts describe this practice as drinking light, a metabolic process that sustained spiritual vitality throughout the day. The specific postures you assume during solar greeting follow precise instructions passed down through maternal lineages. Your grandmother's grandmother performed these exact movements, as did her grandmother before her, creating an unbroken chain of feminine solar worship stretching back to humanity's earliest spiritual traditions. Each gesture activates energy centers that correspond to different aspects of health and consciousness. Raising arms awakens heart energy. Tilting your face upward opens throat chakras. Breathing deeply energizes your core. The incense you burn while performing these solar salutations releases aromatics that alter consciousness in subtle but measurable ways. Frankincense contains compounds that reduce anxiety and promote feelings of transcendence, while myrrh provides antiseptic protection against airborne pathogens. Your morning ritual isn't just spiritual theatre, it's practical medicine disguised as religious observance, or perhaps the reverse. Standing there in the growing light, arms raised toward infinity, you embody thousands of years of feminine wisdom about how to properly launch each day into existence. Modern women might rush through abbreviated morning routines while checking smartphones and gulping coffee. But you understand that dawn deserves ceremonial recognition. This moment of transition from sleep to wakefulness, from private contemplation to public engagement, from night's mysteries to day's responsibilities. This threshold requires reverence if the day is to unfold with grace and purpose. Your stomach's gentle rumbling signals the transition from spiritual preparation to practical sustenance. And you move toward the kitchen area where generations of women have transformed raw grains into the staff of life. The emmer wheat waiting in your storage jars represents more than breakfast. It's the foundation of civilization itself. The golden treasure that allowed humanity to abandon nomadic wandering and build the first permanent settlements. As you run your fingers through the grain, feeling its weight and texture, you're touching the very substance that made cities, writing, and complex societies possible. The grinding stones that will transform this wheat into flour bear the smooth polish of countless hands, your mothers, your grandmothers, and the hands of women whose names have been forgotten, but whose work literally built the ancient world. These aren't simple kitchen tools, they're precision instruments carved from specific types of stone chosen for their grinding properties. The upper stone, called a quern, fits perfectly in your palms, its weight distributed to maximize efficiency while minimizing the strain on your wrists and shoulders. You begin the rhythmic motion that will occupy the next hour, pushing and rotating the upper stone against the lower one in patterns that create different textures of flour. Coarse meal for everyday bread, fine powder for special occasions, and everything in between depending on the day's requirements. The sound becomes hypnotic, a steady grinding that synchronizes with your breathing and creates a meditative state where thoughts flow as smoothly as grain between stones. Historians still argue whether ancient bread making was purely practical or carried deeper spiritual significance, but the evidence suggests these daily grinding sessions served multiple purposes beyond mere food preparation. The repetitive motions induce altered states of consciousness, where women received visions, solved problems, and processed emotional experiences. Many of history's most important innovations in agriculture, textile production, and medicine emerged during these quiet hours of grain grinding, when the conscious mind relaxed enough to allow deeper wisdom to surface. The flour that accumulates beneath your grinding stones carries the essence of sunlight, rainfall, and soil that nurtured the original wheat. Ancient texts describe bread as captured sunshine, recognizing that grain stores solar energy in concentrated form. When you consume bread, You're literally eating light that has been transformed through the miraculous process of photosynthesis into something your body can metabolize. This understanding makes bread preparation feel less like cooking and more like alchemy, transforming one form of energy into another. Your water comes from the household well, drawn in ceramic jugs that keep it naturally cool even during the hottest days. But this isn't ordinary water. It's been blessed through the lunar cycle, exposed to moonlight during the 3 nights when the moon was fullest. Ancient women understood that water's molecular structure changes in response to lunar energy, becoming more receptive to the yeast cultures that will make bread rise. Modern science confirms that lunar cycles do indeed affect fermentation processes, though the mechanisms remain mysterious. The starter culture you use to leaven your bread has been alive for generations, passed down from mother to daughter like a living heirloom. This isn't commercial yeast purchased from a store. It's a complex ecosystem of beneficial bacteria and wild yeasts that have adapted to your specific environment, your family's dietary patterns, even the unique bacterial signature of your hands, fed daily with fresh flour and water. This culture has witnessed more history than most human bloodlines, surviving famines, wars, and migrations while continuing to transform simple ingredients into nutritious bread. Adding salt to your dough connects you to trade networks that span continents, since salt deposits rarely occur near fertile agricultural lands. The white crystals in your palm travelled hundreds of miles through the hands of merchants who risk their lives crossing deserts and mountains to bring this precious preservative to your kitchen. Salt doesn't just enhance flavour, it strengthens gluten structures, controls fermentation rates, and provides essential minerals that your body requires for optimal health. The kneading process transforms disparate ingredients into unified dough through what can only be described as kitchen magic. Your hands work the mixture with techniques learned through years of practice, feeling for the exact texture that indicates proper gluten development. This isn't mechanical mixing, it's a dance between your hands and the dough, a conversation conducted through touch where the bread tells you what it needs and your experience provides the appropriate response. Ancient bread-making techniques produced loaves with complex flavours that modern commercial baking rarely achieves. The long fermentation times allowed beneficial bacteria to pre-digest proteins and carbohydrates, making nutrients more bioavailable while creating subtle flavours that could vary from batch to batch depending on weather, season, and the baker's emotional state. Women understood that their mood while kneading affected the final product. Angry bread turned out dense and heavy, while bread made with joy rose beautifully and tasted divine. The clay oven where you'll bake this bread was constructed using knowledge that spans multiple crafts, pottery, engineering, and thermal dynamics all combined into a structure that maintains precise temperatures for hours without external fuel sources. The dome shape isn't arbitrary. It creates optimal heat circulation patterns that ensure even baking while conserving fuel. The thermal mass of thick clay walls stores heat energy and releases it slowly, mimicking the steady temperature control that modern electric ovens achieve through electronic sensors. Preparing the oven requires you to build a fire inside the baking chamber, letting flames heat the clay walls until they glow white hot, then removing all traces of fire and ash before inserting your bread. This process demands perfect timing. Too hot and the crust burns before the interior cooks. Too cool and the bread fails to rise properly. You judge temperature through subtle visual cues, the way heat shimmers above the oven floor, the colour of the interior walls, the sound dough makes when it hits the hot surface. While waiting for optimal oven temperature, you prepare other breakfast components that will accompany your fresh bread. cheese made from goat milk that has been aging in cool caves, developing complex flavours through controlled bacterial action, honey harvested from your family's beehives, where you maintain relationships with bee colonies through offerings of fresh flowers and careful hive management. Olive oil pressed from fruits grown in groves that have been tended by your extended family for generations. The timing of bread baking coordinates with other household rhythms. You need fresh loaves ready when family members wake up, but the baking process can't interfere with other morning responsibilities. This requires complex scheduling that takes into account fermentation rates, oven heating times, weather conditions, and family dietary preferences. Ancient women developed sophisticated time management skills that coordinated multiple parallel processes without benefit of clocks or written schedules. As your bread bakes, filling the kitchen with aromas that announce the day's first accomplishment, you begin preparing fermented beverages that will accompany the meal. Beer brewing and bread making use similar techniques. Both involved controlled fermentation of grain products, but beer required additional steps that transformed nutritious grain into mildly intoxicating drinks that provided calories, vitamins, and social lubrication. Women controlled both processes, making them the original masters of biotechnology centuries before anyone understood the scientific principles involved. The breakfast you're creating represents far more than mere sustenance. It's a daily demonstration of feminine mastery over natural processes, from grain cultivation to final consumption. Every component requires specialized knowledge passed down through generations of women who understood that feeding families well was both practical necessity and sacred duty. Modern nutritionists are only beginning to appreciate the sophisticated understanding of food science that ancient women took for granted. With breakfast preparations well underway, you turn your attention to the spinning wheel that waits patiently in the corner of your main room, surrounded by baskets filled with raw materials that will become the threads binding civilizations together. The flax stalks beside your wheel travelled from fields where women like yourself supervised the delicate process of harvesting plants at exactly the right moment. Too early and the fibres lack strength. Too late and they become coarse and difficult to work with. This timing requires intimate knowledge of plant cycles that modern agricultural science has only recently begun to understand. Your hands reach automatically for the wooden distaff, a tool so essential to women's work that it became synonymous with feminine identity itself, hence the term distaff side for maternal lineage. The bundle of prepared flax fibres you attach to this staff represents weeks of labour, soaking the stalks in ponds until beneficial bacteria decompose the plant matter holding fibres together, beating the dried stalks to separate usable threads from woody debris, combing the fibres repeatedly until they are lined in parallel strands ready for spinning. The spinning wheel itself is a marvel of ancient engineering that amplifies human muscle power through mechanical advantage, allowing you to create thread far more efficiently than the hand spindles your great-grandmother used. The large drive wheel multiplies the rotation speed of the smaller spindle, while the flyer mechanism automatically winds finished thread onto bobbins without interrupting the spinning process. This technology represents centuries of incremental improvements, each generation of women adding refinements that made textile production more efficient and less physically demanding. As you begin to spin, drawing out fibres with one hand while controlling tension with the other, you're participating in what archaeologists consider humanity's first industrial revolution. Long before steam engines or factory systems, women's spinning wheels powered the ancient world's economy. The thread you create in your home will travel through extensive trade networks, becoming sailcloth for Mediterranean vessels, rope for Egyptian pyramid construction, or luxury fabrics for Mesopotamian temple ceremonies. The rhythm of spinning induces a meditative state that ancient texts describe as thread trance, a form of moving meditation where the repetitive motions quiet conscious thought and allow deeper awareness to emerge. Many of history's most important insights allegedly came to women during these spinning sessions, when the regular sound of wheel and spindle created conditions conducive to creative problem solving. The steady whir of your wheel harmonizes with your breathing, creating a natural biofeedback loop that promotes relaxation while maintaining productive focus. Historians still argue whether textile work empowered ancient women or confined them to domestic drudgery. But economic records suggest that skilled spinners and weavers commanded significant respect and financial independence. Your thread quality determines your family's social status. Fine. Evenly spun thread indicates technical mastery that translates into economic opportunity, while coarse, irregular thread marks you as either inexperienced or careless. The subtle variations in thread thickness, twist, and texture become your signature, as recognizable to other textile workers as a painter's brushstrokes. The wool waiting in another basket presents different challenges and opportunities than a plant-based fibres, sheared from sheep that graze in highland pastures. This wool carries the lanolin oils that kept those animals warm through harsh winters. The natural grease in wool fibres makes them water-resistant and helps them hold dyes more effectively than plant fibres. But it also requires different spinning techniques. Your hands adjust automatically to wool's unique properties, applying less tension to prevent breaking while maintaining enough twist to create strong thread. Colour planning occupies a significant portion of your textile thinking, since dyeing must happen at specific stages of the production process. Some colours work best when applied to raw fibre before spinning. Others penetrate more effectively after thread formation but before weaving, and a few rare dyes can only be applied to finished fabric. The deep blue you're planning for this batch of thread requires indigo plants that grow in distant regions, making blue thread a luxury item that signals wealth and sophisticated trade connections. The mordants needed to make dyes permanent come from equally exotic sources: alum from volcanic regions, iron from bog deposits, copper from mining operations controlled by distant rulers. Each mordant creates different colour variations with the same dye source, multiplying your palette options while requiring extensive knowledge of chemical interactions that ancient women understood through empirical experience rather than theoretical study. The subtle science of natural dyeing rivals modern chemistry in its complexity. Between spinning sessions, you prepare fibre for future work by combing wool with bronze tools that align individual strands and remove any remaining vegetable matter. This process, called carding, requires specific techniques that prevent fibre damage while achieving maximum parallelization. The cards themselves are precision instruments with hundreds of tiny metal teeth set at exact angles to grab fibres without tearing them. Skilled card makers commanded high prices for tools that could last a lifetime with proper care. The cotton fibres in a smaller basket represent the newest addition to your textile repertoire, recently introduced through trade connections with distant lands where this unusual plant produces white, fluffy seed pods perfect for spinning. Cotton requires completely different processing techniques than wool or flax. The seeds must be carefully removed without damaging fibres, then the cotton must be bowed to align strands for spinning. The learning curve for cotton processing keeps many spinners committed to familiar materials, but forward-thinking women recognise cotton's potential for creating lightweight fabrics perfect for hot climates. Thread strength testing becomes a crucial quality control process, since weak thread will break during weaving or fail in finished garments. You test samples by stretching them between your hands, feeling for the tension point where fibres begin to separate. Strong thread should stretch slightly before breaking. indicating proper fibre alignment and optimal twist ratios. This empirical testing method, refined through generations of practice, produces results as reliable as modern laboratory equipment. The mathematical precision required for textile planning would surprise modern observers who assume ancient crafts were purely intuitive. Creating a finished garment requires calculating thread quantities, planning colour patterns, coordinating different fibre types, and timing production stages to ensure materials are ready when needed. Your mental arithmetic skills rival those of professional merchants, since miscalculations in textile work waste months of labour and expensive materials. Storage of finished thread requires protection from insects, moisture, and UV light that can weaken fibres or fade colours. The wooden chests where you keep completed work are treated with aromatic oils that repel moths while preserving thread quality. Cedar, sandalwood, and other fragrant woods provide natural pest control that protects your textile investments better than many modern chemical treatments. The social aspects of spinning create networks of women who share techniques, trade materials, and coordinate large textile projects that require multiple workers. Spinning bees bring together neighbourhood women for communal work sessions that accomplish practical goals while maintaining social connections. These gatherings function as informal information exchanges where news travels, problems get solved, and young women learn advanced techniques from experienced spinners. Quality thread becomes a form of currency in economies where metal coins are rare and barter systems dominate commercial exchange. Your best work can be traded for pottery, tools, jewellery, or other goods produced by skilled craftspeople in different trades. Thread wealth accumulates more steadily than agricultural produce, since properly stored textiles maintain their value across seasons and years, providing economic security that harvest-dependent families can't achieve. As morning light streams through your window, illuminating the growing pile of perfectly spun thread, you pause to appreciate the transformation you've accomplished. Simple plant and animal fibres have become the raw material for humanity's second skin, the clothing that allows people to inhabit climates far from their evolutionary origins, the sails that enable maritime exploration, the rope that builds monuments and moves massive stones. Your spinning wheel has become a tool for reshaping civilization itself. The morning sun climbs higher as you gather your finest threads, carefully wound into portable skeins, and prepare for your weekly journey to the marketplace, that bustling nexus where the ancient world's economy pulses with an energy that would make modern stock exchanges seem tame by comparison. You slip your most valuable threads into a leather pouch worn close to your body, because thread theft ranks among the most serious crimes in a world where a single skein of expertly dyed silk can feed a family for months. The weight of quality textiles against your hip feels reassuring, like carrying portable wealth that retains its value regardless of political upheavals or currency fluctuations. Your route to the Egyptian bazaar follows pathways worn smooth by countless generations of women who understood that marketplace success required far more than simply showing up with goods to sell. The timing of your arrival coordinates with complex social rhythms. Too early and the best customers haven't finished their morning routines. Too late and premium selling spots get claimed by competitors who've been working these markets longer than you've been alive. The sweet spot requires arriving just as shadows begin to shorten. When wealthy household managers emerge to conduct their daily purchasing with purses full of silver and specific requirements for quality goods, the marketplace assault on your senses begins before you even reach the central plaza. As competing aromas of spices, livestock, leather goods, and cooking food create an olfactory map of human commerce. Cinnamon from distant Ceylon mingles with local garlic, while the metallic tang of bronze-working shops contrasts sharply with the organic richness of fresh-baked bread. These scent trails guide experienced shoppers towards specific vendors, but they also signal quality levels. The best spice merchants position themselves upwind from food stalls to avoid contamination, while leather workers cluster downwind to prevent their tanning odours from affecting food sales. Your designated selling area reflects years of relationship building with market supervisors who control the most advantageous locations. The spot you've earned through consistent quality and reliable attendance puts you near the fountain, where wealthy women gather to examine textiles in good light while exchanging social gossip. This isn't accidental positioning. It's strategic placement that maximizes exposure to customers who can afford premium prices for superior workmanship. The rent you pay for this location, calculated in measures of grain rather than coins, represents a significant investment that only pays off through sustained excellence. Setting up your display requires understanding principles of visual merchandising that wouldn't look out of place in modern retail environments. You arrange thread samples to showcase colour gradations that demonstrate your dyeing expertise, while positioning your finest work at eye level, where morning light illuminates the subtle variations that mark superior craftsmanship. The wooden frame where you hang finished fabrics creates a backdrop that makes your colours appear more vibrant, while small pottery vessels hold dye samples that allow customers to envision custom colour combinations. Historians still argue whether ancient marketplace regulations favoured male merchants over female vendors, but archaeological evidence suggests that women controlled significant portions of textile trade throughout the Mediterranean world. Your presence here isn't unusual. Women dominate the fabric markets because the textile production remained primarily feminine work, and customers prefer buying directly from producers who can guarantee quality and provide technical advice about fabric care and usage. The negotiation process that begins when customers approach your stall follows protocols as complex as modern diplomatic procedures, since successful bargaining requires understanding not just material values, but social relationships, seasonal demands, and individual customer psychology. The wealthy Egyptian woman examining your silk threads doesn't simply want quality fabric. She wants textiles that will enhance her social status while demonstrating her sophisticated taste to friends and rivals. Your job involves reading these deeper motivations and positioning your products to satisfy emotional needs as much as practical requirements. Price calculations happen in your head using mathematical systems that account for raw material costs, labour time, rarity of dyes, seasonal availability, and customer purchasing power. A skein of thread that took you 3 days to produce using expensive imported indigo commands premium prices from wealthy customers, but you also carry less expensive alternatives dyed with local plants for customers working within tighter budgets. This price differentiation allows you to serve multiple market segments while maintaining profit margins that support your family's lifestyle. The silver coins that wealthy customers offer for payment connect you to mining operations in distant mountains, where slaves extract precious metals under conditions that would horrify modern observers. These gleaming discs represent concentrated wealth that travels more easily than barter goods, but their value fluctuates based on political stability and trade route security. You've learned to evaluate coin purity through visual inspection and weight testing, since counterfeit silver regularly appears in markets where money changes hands rapidly. Competition from other textile vendors requires constant innovation in both product development and marketing techniques. The woman selling linens 3 stalls down offers lower prices but inferior quality, forcing you to emphasize the superior durability and color fastness that justify premium pricing. Meanwhile, the silk merchant from Persia commands even higher prices through exclusivity. His fabrics come from trade routes you can't access. creating luxury market segments beyond your reach, but also protecting your middle market position from his competition. Customer relationships extend far beyond individual transaction, as satisfied buyers become repeat customers who provide steady income and valuable word-of-mouth advertising. The priest's wife who purchases your threads for temple vestments represents not just immediate sales, but potential connections to other religious customers who value quality over cost considerations. Similarly, the merchant's daughter preparing for marriage needs extensive textiles for her trousseau, creating opportunities for large orders that can support your family through slow seasons. Quality control becomes a public performance in the marketplace settings, where customers examine your work with the critical eyes of experts who understand textile production intimately. The way thread breaks when stretched, the uniformity of dye penetration, the consistency of fiber twist. These technical details get scrutinized by women who have been evaluating textiles since childhood. Your reputation depends on maintaining standards that satisfy the most demanding customers, since negative reviews travel through social networks faster than positive recommendations. The information exchange that happens during marketplace interactions rivals formal education in its scope and practical value. Conversations with customers reveal fashion trends developing in distant cities, new dye techniques being perfected by innovative craftswomen, political developments that might affect trade routes, and economic conditions that influence luxury goods demand. Your textile stall becomes an intelligence-gathering centre, where knowledge accumulates as surely as coins in your purse. Transportation of unsold goods back home requires careful planning, since valuable textiles must be protected from dust, moisture, and theft during the journey. The special wrapping cloths you use for transport are themselves valuable items. Fine linen that provides protective cushioning while demonstrating your attention to detail. Potential customers judge your professionalism partly by how well you care for your merchandise. Making proper packaging both practical necessity and marketing tool. Seasonal variations in marketplace activity require adjusting your production schedule to meet predictable demand cycles. Wedding seasons create surges in fabric sales as families prepare celebration clothing and household linens for new couples. Religious festivals generate demand for specific colours and textile types used in ceremonial garments. Agricultural cycles affect customer purchasing power as harvest income enables luxury purchases that lean seasons can't support. The legal framework governing marketplace transactions provides surprisingly sophisticated consumer protections, with market courts handling disputes over quality claims, pricing disagreements, and delivery failures. Your reputation within this legal system affects your ability to secure prime selling locations and influences how disputes get resolved when problems arise. Maintaining good standing requires not just producing quality goods, but also conducting business with the integrity that builds long-term trust relationships. As afternoon approaches and you calculate the day's earnings, converting various coins and barter goods into mental assessments of profit and loss, you realize that your success in these ancient markets depends on skills that span economics, psychology, chemistry, mathematics, and diplomacy, making you a businesswoman whose expertise would translate remarkably well to modern commercial environments. Your return from the marketplace coincides with the soft, stirring sounds that signal your youngest child awakening from her midday rest, and you transition seamlessly from textile merchant to nurturing mother, a role transformation that ancient societies understood required entirely different but equally sophisticated skill sets. The sleeping mat where your 3-year-old daughter stretches and yawns is positioned precisely to catch afternoon breezes while remaining protected from direct sunlight. Following childcare principles that modern pediatricians are only beginning to rediscover through careful study of traditional parenting practices. The way you approach her awakening follows protocols passed down through generations of mothers who understood that the transition from sleep to wakefulness affects a child's emotional state for hours afterward. Your movements remain deliberately slow and quiet, allowing her consciousness to emerge gradually rather than jolting her into alertness with sudden sounds or bright lights. This gentle awakening technique, which ancient texts describe as summoning the soul back to the body, reflects sophisticated understanding of sleep physiology that predates scientific research by thousands of years. Your daughter's first need upon waking involves hydration with specially prepared water that has been boiled with medicinal herbs and cooled to body temperature. This isn't simple thirst management, it's preventive medicine based on empirical observations that children who drink contaminated water develop serious illnesses that can prove fatal without proper treatment. The ceramic cup from which she drinks was specifically chosen for its size, weight, and surface texture to encourage proper oral motor development while reducing the risk of accidental breakage that could cause injuries. The clothing you select for her afternoon activities demonstrates the sophisticated understanding ancient parents possessed about child development and environmental adaptation. The lightweight linen tunic allows freedom of movement essential for gross motor skill development, while the carefully calculated looseness prevents restriction of breathing or circulation. The natural dyes used to colour her garments avoid toxic substances that could irritate sensitive skin, relying instead on plant-based colorants that actually provide mild antiseptic protection against harmful bacteria. Historians still argue whether ancient childhood was significantly shorter than modern childhood or simply structured differently, but archaeological evidence suggests that children in civilized societies enjoyed extended periods of play and learning before assuming adult responsibilities. Your daughter's daily schedule includes substantial time for unstructured exploration, creative play, and social interaction with other children, activities that ancient educators recognized as essential for proper cognitive and emotional development. The toys scattered around your living area reflect careful consideration of materials, safety, and developmental appropriateness that rivals modern child psychology in its sophistication. Wooden dolls carved from specific tree species known for their antibacterial properties serve multiple functions. They provide imaginative play opportunities, while their natural oils help prevent the growth of harmful microorganisms that thrive on frequently handled objects. The rattles filled with dried beans create auditory stimulation that supports hearing development while teaching cause and effect relationships. Feeding your growing child requires understanding nutritional principles that modern science has validated, but ancient mothers discovered through careful observation of child health patterns. The porridge you prepare combines multiple grains to provide complete protein profiles, while added honey supplies quick energy and natural antimicrobial compounds that support immune system function. The timing of meals coordinates with natural circadian rhythms that optimize digestion and nutrient absorption throughout the day. The medicinal knowledge you apply to childcare encompasses a sophisticated pharmacological understanding that rivals modern pediatric medicine in many areas. The chamomile tea you brew to soothe your daughter's occasional stomach upset contains compounds that modern research confirms have genuine anti-inflammatory and digestive benefits. Similarly, the willow bark preparations you use for fever reduction contain salicin, the natural precursor to aspirin that provides effective pain relief without the synthetic additives found in modern medications. Discipline techniques in your household follow principles that emphasize natural consequences and emotional regulation, rather than physical punishment or arbitrary restrictions. When your daughter misbehaves, You guide her toward understanding the real-world results of her actions, while teaching emotional management skills that will serve her throughout life. This approach, which ancient texts describe as teaching through wisdom rather than fear, produces children who develop internal moral compasses rather than external compliance mechanisms. The educational activities you provide throughout the day integrate learning with practical life skills in ways that make knowledge acquisition feel natural and enjoyable. Teaching your daughter to sort different types of beans develops classification skills while contributing to household food preparation. Showing her how to identify edible plants during garden walks builds botanical knowledge while ensuring survival skills that could prove crucial during food shortages or travel situations. Language development receives particular attention through storytelling techniques that enhance vocabulary, cultural transmission, and moral education simultaneously. The tales you tell during quiet afternoon moments aren't mere entertainment. There are sophisticated educational tools that embed practical wisdom within memorable narratives. Stories about clever heroines who solve problems through intelligence rather than force teach your daughter that feminine wisdom represents genuine power worthy of respect and cultivation. Social skill development happens through carefully supervised interactions with the neighborhood children whose families share similar values and parenting approaches. These play sessions aren't casual gatherings, they're structured learning environments where children practice cooperation, conflict resolution, and emotional communication under adult guidance that prevents negative patterns from becoming established. Ancient parents understood that peer relationships formed during early childhood influence social competence throughout adult life. The physical environment where your children spend their time has been carefully designed to promote healthy development while minimizing safety risks that could cause serious injuries. Sharp corners on furniture are padded with thick fabrics. Potentially toxic plants are removed from areas where children play, and small objects that could pose choking hazards are stored beyond reach. This environmental modification represents systematic risk assessment that considers both obvious dangers and subtle threats to child welfare. Creative expression receives encouragement through access to art materials and musical instruments appropriate for small hands and developing motor skills. The clay you provide for sculpture projects comes from specific soil types that remain soft and pliable while being non-toxic if accidentally ingested. The simple flutes and drums available for musical exploration introduce concepts of rhythm, melody, and mathematical relationships while supporting fine motor development and auditory processing skills. Sleep preparation rituals establish consistent routines that promote healthy rest patterns essential for proper growth and cognitive development. The bedtime songs you sing contain specific rhythmic patterns that synchronize with natural brainwave frequencies associated with deep sleep states. The sleeping environment maintains optimal temperature and humidity levels through natural ventilation systems that provide fresh air circulation without creating drafts that could cause respiratory problems. Cultural education happens through participation in family and community traditions that connect children to their heritage while building identity and belonging. Your daughter's involvement in religious ceremonies, seasonal celebrations, and craft production activities teaches her about social roles, spiritual beliefs, and practical skills simultaneously. This integration of cultural transmission with daily life ensures that traditional knowledge passes naturally from generation to generation. Health monitoring involves daily assessment of physical indicators that reveal developing problems before they become serious illnesses. You check your daughter's skin color, energy levels, appetite patterns, and sleep quality for signs of nutritional deficiencies, infectious diseases, or emotional disturbances that require intervention. This systematic observation, combined with extensive knowledge of childhood development patterns, allows early detection and treatment of health issues that could otherwise cause permanent damage. The psychological aspects of ancient childcare demonstrate sophisticated understanding of emotional development that modern child psychology has largely validated. You recognize that children need consistent emotional support, clear behavioral expectations, and opportunities for autonomous decision-making within safe boundaries. The balance between protection and independence that you maintain allows your daughter to develop confidence and competence while ensuring her safety and well-being. As evening approaches and you prepare your children for the transition toward nighttime routines, you reflect on the complex knowledge base that effective parenting requires, understanding that spans medicine, psychology, education, nutrition, and cultural transmission. The children you're raising will carry forward the wisdom of countless previous generations while adapting to new challenges and opportunities that await them in an ever-changing world. As the afternoon light begins its golden transformation toward evening, you gather your ceremonial shawl and make your way toward the temple complex that dominates your city's skyline, not as a passive worshipper seeking divine favor, but as an active participant in the sacred duties that maintain cosmic balance between earthly and celestial realms. The limestone steps beneath your feet have been worn smooth by countless generations of women who understood that religious practice required far more than simple prayer and offering. It demanded sophisticated knowledge of astronomical cycles, ritual procedures, and the complex theological systems that governed relationships between mortals and immortals. Your role as a temple attendant represents one of the most prestigious positions available to women in ancient society, requiring extensive training in sacred texts, ceremonial protocols, and the intricate calendar systems that coordinate religious observances with seasonal cycles. The clay tablet tucked carefully in your carrying pouch contains this week's divination schedule, written in the cuneiform script that you learned through years of study under elder priestesses who guarded their knowledge jealously. Your literacy alone marks you as exceptional, since reading and writing remained rare skills that elevated their possessors above the vast majority of the population. The inner sanctum where you perform your duties exists in a state of perpetual twilight, illuminated by oil lamps that burn continuously to honor the eternal presence of divine forces. The flickering light creates shadows that dance across wall paintings depicting goddess figures in various aspects. Inanna as warrior queen, Ninhursag as earth mother, Ereshkigal as queen of the underworld. These aren't mere decorative images, but sacred icons that serve as focal points for meditation and prayer, each detail carefully planned to evoke specific spiritual responses in worshippers who understand their symbolic meanings. Your first responsibility involves tending the sacred flame that must never be allowed to die, since its extinction would signal divine abandonment of the community and potentially catastrophic consequences for crops, health, and political stability. The oil that feeds this flame comes from olives grown in temple groves and pressed according to ancient specifications that ensure purity. Adding oil to the lamp requires specific prayers and hand movements that acknowledge the sacred nature of fire as a direct manifestation of divine energy on the earthly plane. The ritual purification you perform before handling sacred objects follows procedures that modern microbiologists would recognize as effective contamination control. Though ancient practitioners understood these protocols in spiritual rather than scientific terms, the special soap used for ceremonial washing contains antimicrobial herbs that actually do reduce harmful bacteria, while the specific sequence of cleansing actions ensures that no part of your body remains ritually contaminated. This attention to purity reflects understanding that sacred work requires practitioners to exist in optimal physical and spiritual condition. Historians still argue whether ancient priestesses wielded genuine political power or simply provided ceremonial legitimacy for male-dominated power structures, but temple records suggest that religious women controlled significant economic resources and influenced major community decisions through their interpretive authority over divine messages. Your position grants access to information networks that span the entire known world, since temples served as communication centers where news, trade intelligence, and diplomatic messages flowed through networks of religious correspondence. The divination techniques you practice involve complex interpretation of natural phenomena that requires extensive knowledge of astronomy, meteorology, and behavioral psychology. Reading omens in the flight patterns of birds demands understanding seasonal migration routes, weather prediction, and the subtle environmental cues that influence animal behavior. Similarly, interpreting dreams reported by temple visitors requires psychological insights that allow you to decode symbolic imagery and provide guidance that helps people navigate personal and professional challenges. The sacred texts you study contain not just religious doctrine, but practical knowledge about medicine, agriculture, and social organization disguised as mythological narratives. The creation stories that seem like primitive superstition to modern readers actually encode sophisticated astronomical observations, mathematical principles, and historical information about cultural development. Your theological education encompasses far more than spiritual matters. It provides comprehensive training in the intellectual traditions that preserve civilizational knowledge across generations. Preparation of ritual offerings requires understanding principles of chemistry and pharmacology that transform ordinary substances into spiritually potent materials. The incense you blend combines aromatic resins that alter consciousness in measurable ways, creating psychological states conducive to mystical experience and divine communication. The specific proportions of different ingredients follow recipes that have been refined through centuries of experimentation, producing effects that modern aromatherapy research confirms as genuine therapeutic benefits. The musical aspects of temple service involve both performance and composition skills that rival professional entertainers in their technical sophistication. The hymns you sing follow complex melodic structures that incorporate mathematical relationships between notes, creating harmonic progressions that induce altered states of consciousness in both performers and listeners. The sacred instruments you play, lyres, flutes, and percussion, require years of practice to master, while the improvisational elements of religious music demand creativity and spiritual sensitivity that cannot be taught through mere technical instruction. Administrative responsibilities connected to your religious role include managing temple finances, coordinating festival preparations, and maintaining records of births, deaths, marriages, and other significant community events. The temple serves as both spiritual center and civic institution, requiring priests and priestesses to possess business skills that ensure proper resource management and community service delivery. Your mathematical abilities must be sufficient to handle complex accounting procedures, while your organizational skills coordinate the efforts of multiple assistants and volunteers. The prophetic functions that occasionally fall to you involve interpreting divine messages received through dreams, meditation, or direct mystical experience. These aren't random supernatural events, but the result of systematic spiritual practices that cultivate receptivity to intuitive insights and symbolic communication. The training you received in prophetic technique includes methods for entering altered states of consciousness, techniques for distinguishing genuine divine communication from psychological projection, and protocols for translating mystical experiences into practical guidance for community members. Seasonal ceremonies require coordination with astronomical observations that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics and calendar systems. The timing of major festivals must align precisely with solstices, equinoxes, and lunar phases that affect agricultural cycles and human fertility patterns. Your knowledge of these connections allows you to predict optimal times for planting, harvesting, and reproductive activities that influence community prosperity and population growth. The healing work performed in temple settings combines spiritual intervention with medical treatment that often proves more effective than purely secular approaches to health problems. The prayers you offer for sick individuals include specific requests for divine assistance, but they also incorporate relaxation techniques, stress reduction, and social support that modern medicine recognizes as important factors in recovery processes. The herbal remedies blessed in religious ceremonies gain additional therapeutic power through psychological mechanisms that enhance their physiological effects. Training younger women in religious knowledge represents one of your most important long-term responsibilities. Since the preservation of sacred traditions depends on successful knowledge transmission across generations, the students you mentor must demonstrate not just intellectual capacity, but also spiritual sensitivity and emotional stability sufficient to handle the psychological demands of religious service. Your teaching methods combine formal instruction with experiential learning that gradually develops the complex skill sets required for effective priestess work. The social networks you maintain through religious connections provide access to information and resources that extend far beyond your local community. Temple correspondence connects you to religious centers throughout the ancient world, creating communication channels that facilitate trade negotiations, diplomatic initiatives, and cultural exchange. Your position grants influence over community decisions through your ability to frame issues in religious terms and invoke divine authority to support or oppose proposed policies. As evening deepens and you complete the final ritual observances that close another day of sacred service, you pause to appreciate the profound responsibility that religious work entails, serving as a bridge between human and divine realms while preserving the spiritual traditions that provide meaning, guidance, and hope to countless individuals seeking connection with forces greater than themselves. The transition from temple duties to your secondary role as community healer brings you to the herb garden behind your dwelling, where rows of carefully cultivated medicinal plants represent a living pharmacy that would impress modern medical professionals with its pharmacological sophistication. The evening light filtering through the canopy of aromatic leaves creates the perfect illumination for harvesting plants at optimal potency levels. Since ancient herbalists understood that timing affects the concentration of active compounds in ways that contemporary research has only recently validated through laboratory analysis. Your garden layout follows principles that maximize both plant health and human convenience, with complementary species planted in proximity to enhance soil nutrition and pest control through natural symbiotic relationships. The chamomile growing beside your mint doesn't just create pleasant aromatic combinations, it actually improves mint oil production, while the mint's natural pesticide properties protect chamomile from harmful insects. This companion planting technique demonstrates ecological knowledge that modern permaculture enthusiasts consider cutting-edge sustainable agriculture. The willow trees whose bark you harvest for pain relief medications were planted by your grandmother's grandmother, since willow compounds require decades to reach therapeutic potency levels. The patient long-term planning required for medicinal tree cultivation reflects understanding that effective healthcare systems must span generations, with each cohort of healers preparing resources for future practitioners. The salicin concentrated in mature willow bark provides pain relief that rivals modern aspirin, but without the synthetic additives that can cause stomach irritation in sensitive individuals. Your collection methods follow precise protocols that ensure maximum therapeutic benefit while maintaining plant health for sustainable harvesting. The small copper knife you use for cutting leaves creates clean wounds that heal quickly, while the timing of your harvesting coordinates with lunar cycles that ancient texts claim influence plant potency. Modern research suggests that gravitational forces associated with moon phases may indeed affect fluid movement in plant tissues, potentially validating traditional timing practices that seemed purely superstitious to earlier generations of scientists. The drying techniques you employ transform fresh plant material into concentrated medicines that retain their potency for months or even years when properly stored. The ventilated wooden frames where you spread harvested herbs create optimal airflow patterns that remove moisture without destroying delicate essential oils. Temperature control during the drying process requires constant attention, since excessive heat can break down active compound, while insufficient drying allows destructive mold growth that renders medicines unsafe for consumption. Historians still argue whether ancient healers possessed genuine medical knowledge or simply practiced elaborate placebo treatments. But archaeological analysis of preserved medicines reveals sophisticated understanding of plant chemistry and human physiology that produced measurably effective treatments. Your diagnostic skills, developed through years of observing patient symptoms and treatment outcomes, allow you to identify illnesses and prescribe remedies with success rates that compare favorably to pre-antibiotic medical practice. The preparation of herbal tinctures involves extracting active compounds through alcohol solutions that concentrate therapeutic effects while providing convenient storage and dosing methods. The clay vessels you use for tincture preparation are specially fired to prevent contamination, while the wooden stirring implements avoid metal contact that could alter chemical compositions. The fermentation processes required for some preparations follow timing protocols that ensure optimal extraction without allowing harmful bacterial growth that could contaminate finished medicines. Patient consultation begins with comprehensive assessment techniques that examine not just immediate symptoms, but underlying constitutional factors that influence disease susceptibility and recovery potential. Your evaluation methods include pulse reading, urine analysis, and observation of subtle physical indicators that reveal information about organ function, nutritional status, and emotional state. This holistic approach to diagnosis recognizes connections between physical and psychological health that modern medicine has only recently begun to acknowledge. The treatment protocols you prescribe often combine multiple therapeutic approaches that address different aspects of illness simultaneously. Herbal medicines provide direct pharmacological intervention, while dietary modifications support healing through improved nutrition and reduced inflammatory responses. Recommendations for rest, exercise, and stress management recognize that lifestyle factors significantly influence recovery outcomes and long-term health maintenance. Pain management techniques available through your herbal arsenal include both acute relief methods and long-term strategies for chronic conditions that affect quality of life. The opium poppy preparations you use for severe pain provide effective analgesic relief, but their administration follows careful dosing protocols that minimize addiction risks while ensuring adequate symptom control. Alternative pain treatments using capsaicin from hot peppers, menthol from mint plants, and cooling compounds from wintergreen offer options for patients who cannot tolerate stronger medications. Reproductive health represents one of your most important specialty areas. since women's fertility and pregnancy complications require specialized knowledge that male physicians often lack. The herbs you prescribe for menstrual irregularities include plants that modern research confirms contain compounds similar to human hormones, providing natural hormone replacement therapy that helps regulate reproductive cycles. Similarly, your treatments for pregnancy-related nausea, labor pain, and postpartum recovery utilize plant medicines that obstetric research has validated as both safe and effective. Infectious disease treatment relies on antimicrobial plants that actually do kill harmful bacteria, fungi, and parasites through mechanisms that scientists are still working to understand completely. The garlic preparations you use for respiratory infections contain allicin compounds that demonstrate genuine antibiotic properties in laboratory testing. Tea tree oil from specific plant species provides topical antiseptic treatment that prevents wound infections more effectively than many synthetic alternatives. Mental health interventions available through your herbal practice include treatments for anxiety, depression, and sleep disorders that utilize plants containing psychoactive compounds with measurable effects on brain chemistry. The John's wort you prescribe for depression contains hyperforin and other substances that function as natural antidepressants, while valerian root preparations provide sedative effects that help patients with insomnia achieve restorative sleep without the dependency risks associated with synthetic sleep medications. Quality control procedures ensure that your medicines maintain consistent potency and safety standards that protect patients from both ineffective treatments and harmful contamination. The testing methods you use include taste evaluation, color assessment, and aromatic analysis that reveal information about proper preparation and storage conditions. Standardized preparation techniques create reproducible results that allow reliable dosing recommendations and predictable therapeutic outcomes. Training of apprentice healers requires transmitting not just plant identification and preparation skills, but also the diagnostic abilities and patient care techniques that distinguish effective practitioners from dangerous amateurs. Your students must demonstrate mastery of botanical knowledge, preparation methods, dosing calculations, and safety protocols before being trusted to treat patients independently. The examination procedures you use to evaluate competency ensure that healing knowledge passes accurately to future generations. Documentation of treatment outcomes through detailed patient records allows continuous improvement of therapeutic protocols and accumulation of medical knowledge that benefits entire communities. Your written observations of which treatments work best for the specific conditions, which patients respond differently to standard remedies, and which side effects occur, with various preparations contribute to a growing database of medical information that spans multiple generations of healers. The legal and ethical framework governing your medical practice includes professional standards that protect both practitioners and patients from harmful consequences of medical treatment. Community oversight ensures that healers maintain competency standards and ethical behavior, while legal protections allow medical practitioners to work without fear of persecution when treatments fail despite proper care. Your professional reputation depends on maintaining high standards of both technical skill and moral conduct. As you complete the evening's medicine preparation and store finished remedies in labeled containers that will serve your community's health needs throughout the coming weeks, you reflect on the profound responsibility that healing work entails. Holding the accumulated medical wisdom of countless previous generations, while continuously expanding that knowledge through careful observation and systematic experimentation advances the art of medicine for future practitioners. The setting sun signals your transition from healer to legal advocate as you prepare for tomorrow's court appearance, where you'll represent your sister in a property dispute that could determine her family's financial security for generations to come. The leather satchel containing legal documents, witness statements, and property deeds represents far more than simple paperwork. It embodies the surprisingly sophisticated legal protections that ancient civilizations provided for women's rights, creating judicial systems that would seem remarkably progressive to many modern observers who assume ancient women possessed no legal standing whatsoever. Your legal education began in childhood through careful observation of your mother's court appearances, since women's property rights in ancient Mesopotamia included inheritance, ownership, and transfer privileges that required navigating complex legal procedures. The cuneiform tablets you've studied contain detailed legal codes that specify women's rights to own businesses, enter contracts, and pursue legal remedies for various grievances. The Code of Hammurabi, despite its reputation for harsh punishments, actually provides extensive protections for women's economic interests and personal safety. The property dispute you'll argue tomorrow involves inheritance rights that demonstrate the intricate legal frameworks ancient societies developed to protect family assets across generations. Your sister's deceased husband left her substantial real estate holdings, but his male relatives challenge her right to maintain control over properties that could pass to their children rather than remaining under feminine management. The legal precedents you'll cite include dozens of similar cases where courts upheld women's inheritance rights against challenges from extended family members seeking to claim valuable assets. Preparation for legal arguments requires mastering rhetorical techniques that persuade judges while demonstrating thorough knowledge of applicable laws and precedent cases. The speeches you've memorized follow classical structures that present evidence logically, address potential counter-arguments systematically, and appeal to both legal principles and community values that support your client's position. Your oratory training includes voice projection, gesture coordination, and timing techniques that enhance persuasive impact in courtroom settings where dramatic presentation can influence judicial decisions. Historians still argue whether ancient legal systems genuinely protected women's interests or simply provided tokenistic procedures that maintained patriarchal control through seemingly equitable processes. But court records reveal numerous cases where women successfully defended their rights against powerful male opponents. The judicial precedents you'll invoke include landmark decisions where female plaintiffs won significant victories that established important principles still referenced in contemporary legal arguments. Evidence compilation involves gathering documentary proof, witness testimony, and expert evaluations that support your sister's legal claims through multiple independent sources. The property surveys you've commissioned demonstrate clear boundary definitions that contradict your opponent's territorial claims, while witness statements from neighbours confirm your sister's continuous occupation and improvement of disputed lands. Financial records showing her investments in property maintenance and agricultural development prove active ownership that strengthens legal claims beyond mere inheritance rights. The court procedures you'll navigate follow formal protocols that ensure fair hearings while maintaining judicial dignity and community respect for legal institutions. The specific garments you'll wear signal respect for judicial authority while projecting competence and social standing that influences how judges and juries perceive your arguments. Your appearance must balance feminine modesty with professional authority, demonstrating legal knowledge without challenging masculine pride in ways that could prejudice decision-makers against your client's interests. Witness preparation requires coaching community members whose testimony could determine case outcomes, ensuring their statements remain truthful while presenting information in ways that maximize persuasive impact. The elderly neighbour who will testify about property boundaries needs guidance on speaking clearly and staying focused on relevant facts, while the merchant who conducted business with your sister requires coaching on financial terminology that judges will understand. Effective witness management combines legal strategy with practical psychology that helps nervous speakers perform well under courtroom pressure. Legal research methods available in ancient societies include consulting written codes, examining precedent cases, and seeking guidance from elder jurists whose experience spans decades of similar disputes. The library of legal texts maintained by temple scribes contains comprehensive records of court decisions, legislative changes, and interpretive commentaries that provide foundation for contemporary legal arguments. Your research skills must be sufficient to locate relevant precedents, while understanding how changing social conditions might affect traditional legal principles. Financial aspects of legal representation include calculating costs for court fees, witness compensation, and potential penalties if cases are unsuccessful. The silver coins required for various legal procedures represent significant expenses that could impoverish families pursuing justice through formal judicial channels. Your fee structure balances accessibility for clients who need legal help with compensation sufficient to support your own family, while maintaining the professional standards that ensure quality representation. The negotiation opportunities that often precede formal trial proceedings allow resolution of disputes through compromise agreements that avoid the uncertainty and expense of judicial decisions. Your diplomatic skills enable mediation between conflicting parties who might reach mutually acceptable settlements without requiring judges to impose binding verdicts. These pre-trial negotiations often produce better outcomes for all parties while preserving family relationships that court battles might permanently damage. Women's legal networks provide mutual support and information sharing that strengthen to individual cases while advancing collective interests in maintaining and expanding feminine legal rights. The monthly gatherings where female legal advocates discuss ongoing cases create opportunities for collaborative strategy development and precedent analysis that benefits entire communities of women facing similar legal challenges. These professional relationships also provide emotional support for the stress and social pressure that legal work inevitably generates. Commercial law represents another specialty area where your expertise serves women entrepreneurs who need legal protection for business ventures and trade relationships. The contracts you draft for female merchants include specific clauses that protect against gender-based discrimination while ensuring enforcement mechanisms that provide genuine legal remedies when agreements are violated. Your understanding of commercial legal principles enables women to participate more confidently in economic activities that require formal legal frameworks. Criminal law applications include representing women who face accusations of various offences, from adultery charges that could result in severe punishments to theft allegations that might involve complex questions about property ownership and family obligations. The legal defences you construct for female defendants often require challenging social assumptions about women's behaviour, while working within legal frameworks that may reflect masculine biases. Your advocacy skills must navigate these cultural tensions while securing the best possible outcomes for clients facing serious legal consequences. International legal issues arise when disputes involve parties from different cities or regions with varying legal traditions and jurisdictional boundaries. The trade disagreement affecting your cousin's importing business requires understanding both local commercial law and the international treaties that govern interregional commerce. Your legal knowledge must encompass multiple legal systems, while identifying which jurisdictions provide the most favourable venues for resolving complex disputes. Legal education for younger women includes both formal instruction in legal principles and practical training in courtroom procedures and client management techniques. The apprentices you mentor must master not just laws and precedents, but also the social skills required for effective legal practice in societies where women's professional competence faces constant scrutiny. Your teaching methods combine theoretical knowledge with experiential learning that gradually develops the confidence and competence required for independent legal practice. Documentation standards require maintaining detailed records of all legal activities, from initial client consultations through final case resolutions, creating archives that serve both immediate practical needs and long-term legal research requirements. The filing systems you maintain allow quick retrieval of relevant information while protecting client confidentiality and preserving important precedents for future reference. Your organizational skills must be sufficient to manage complex information while ensuring accuracy and accessibility. As evening deepens and you complete final preparations for tomorrow's court appearance, reviewing arguments one last time while organizing evidence in optimal presentation sequence, you reflect on the profound responsibility that legal advocacy entails, defending individual rights while strengthening the legal institutions that protect all community members from arbitrary treatment and unjust outcomes. The soft evening light streaming through your workshop window illuminates the potter's wheel that waits patiently for your skilled hands to transform raw clay into vessels that will serve your community's needs for generations to come. The terracotta earth beneath your fingertips carries within its molecular structure the accumulated history of countless seasons, ancient floods that deposited rich sediments, seasonal rains that weathered distant mountains into particles fine enough for ceramic work, and the patient geological processes that created the perfect clay composition that makes your pottery renowned throughout the region. Your preparation begins with the meditative process of wedging clay, kneading it with rhythmic motions that eliminate air bubbles while achieving the uniform consistency essential for successful throwing. This seemingly simple task requires understanding clay's molecular behavior under pressure, recognizing how moisture content affects plasticity, and developing the physical strength needed to work large quantities of dense material. The wedging techniques passed down through generations of potters incorporate principles that modern ceramic engineers validate through scientific analysis of clay particle alignment and stress distribution. The potter's wheel itself represents sophisticated mechanical engineering that amplifies human energy through rotational momentum, allowing delicate control over massive clay masses that would be impossible to shape by hand alone. The heavy stone flywheel stores kinetic energy from your foot power, maintaining steady rotation speeds that enable precise wall thickness control and symmetrical form development. The bearing system that supports the wheelhead uses bronze components manufactured to tolerances that demonstrate remarkable metalworking precision for ancient technology. Centering clay on the spinning wheel requires a combination of physical technique and mental focus that pottery masters compare to meditation in motion. Your hands must apply exactly the right pressure at precisely the correct angle to force clay into perfect rotational alignment, while your breathing coordinates with wheel speed to maintain the relaxed concentration necessary for successful forming. The slightest tension in your shoulders or irregularity in wheel speed can ruin hours of preparation work, making centering both the most critical and most challenging aspect of pottery production. The vessel forms you create serve functions that extend far beyond simple utilitarian needs, embodying aesthetic principles and cultural values that reflect your society's sophisticated understanding of beauty, proportion, and symbolic meaning. The water jars you craft for household use must balance capacity with portability, durability with elegance, and practical function with visual appeal that enhances daily life through contact with beautiful objects. The mathematical relationships governing ideal proportions follow principles that Greek architects would later apply to temple construction. Historians still argue whether ancient potters worked primarily as individual artisans or participated in organized workshop systems that coordinated production and marketing activities. but archaeological evidence suggests that successful pottery operations required complex business relationships involving clay suppliers, fuel providers, kiln operators, and distribution networks. Your workshop represents one component in an economic system that spans multiple crafts and communities, requiring business skills that rival contemporary entrepreneurial ventures. Surface decoration techniques available through your artistic training include painting, carving, and impression methods that transform functional vessels into aesthetic objects worthy of display in wealthy households and religious settings. The mineral pigments you use for painted designs require careful preparation to ensure colour stability and adhesion to ceramic surfaces, while the brushes you craft from animal hair provide precise control over line quality and texture effects. The geometric patterns and naturalistic motifs you apply carry cultural meanings that communicate social status, religious affiliation, and regional identity. Glazing represents the most technically demanding aspect of ceramic production, requiring understanding of chemical interactions between clay bodies, glaze materials, and firing atmospheres that produce specific colour and texture effects. The lead-based glazes you formulate provide brilliant colours and smooth surfaces, but their preparation requires safety precautions to prevent toxic exposure during mixing and application. The firing schedules that mature glazes properly demand precise temperature control and atmospheric management that can take years to master completely. Kiln construction and operation requires knowledge that spans multiple technical disciplines, from engineering principles that ensure structural stability to thermodynamic concepts that optimize fuel efficiency and heat distribution. The updraft kiln you maintain burns wood fuel in carefully controlled combustion chambers, with flue systems that circulate heated gases through pottery chambers before venting to the atmosphere. Temperature monitoring relies on visual cues and test pieces that indicate when firing conditions are optimal for different ceramic processes. The clay preparation process begins months before actual pottery production, as raw materials must be weathered, refined, and aged to achieve working properties that enable successful forming and firing. The clay pits you maintain require careful management to prevent contamination, while allowing natural weathering processes to break down clay particles and remove soluble salts that could cause firing problems. The aging techniques you employ, which involve repeated cycles of wetting and drying, develop plasticity characteristics that improve workability and reduce firing defects. Artistic collaboration with other craftspeople creates opportunities for ceramic works that incorporate metalwork, textile elements, and organic materials into complex artistic statements that transcend simple pottery categories. The vessels you create for ritual use might include bronze fittings crafted by metalworkers, woven elements provided by textile specialists, and carved components contributed by woodworkers. These collaborative projects require coordination skills and artistic vision that integrate multiple craft traditions into unified aesthetic achievements. Quality control procedures ensure that finished pottery meets durability standards essential for practical use, while maintaining aesthetic qualities that justify premium pricing for superior workmanship. The testing methods you employ include thermal shock resistance evaluation, capacity measurement, and structural integrity assessment that identify potential failures before pottery reaches customers. The reputation of your workshop depends on consistent quality that builds customer confidence and generates repeat business essential for long-term economic success. Market analysis helps you anticipate demand for different pottery types, while adjusting production schedules to coordinate with seasonal usage patterns and special events that create surges in demand for specific vessel categories. Wedding seasons generate orders for ceremonial pottery sets. Religious festivals require ritual vessels with specific symbolic decorations, and agricultural cycles create demand for storage containers needed during harvest periods. Understanding these market rhythms allows optimal resource allocation and production planning. Training apprentice potters requires transmitting not just technical skills, but also the aesthetic sensibilities and business knowledge necessary for independent craft practice. Your students must develop physical abilities that enable wheel throwing and hand building, artistic vision that creates beautiful and meaningful forms, and practical understanding of materials and processes that ensure successful production outcomes. The evaluation methods you use to assess apprentice progress identify areas needing additional instruction while recognizing achievements that indicate readiness for advanced training. Tool manufacture and maintenance represent essential skills that pottery masters must develop to ensure optimal working conditions and consistent production results. The wooden ribs you carve for shaping pottery surfaces require specific wood types and precise profiles that achieve desired texture effects, while the wire tools used for cutting clay must maintain proper tension and sharpness through regular adjustment and replacement. The brushes and sponges used for surface finishing require careful selection and preparation to provide appropriate texture and absorbency characteristics. Fuel management involves coordinating wood cutting, seasoning, and storage activities that ensure adequate kiln firing capacity throughout production seasons when pottery demand peaks. The hardwood species you select for high-temperature firing provide clean-burning fuel that produces optimal atmospheric conditions, while softer woods used for bisque firing burn at lower temperatures suitable for initial ceramic processing. Proper fuel storage prevents moisture absorption that could create firing problems while protecting valuable resources from theft and weather damage. Innovation in ceramic technology happens gradually through systematic experimentation with new materials, alternative firing methods, and modified forming techniques that might improve production efficiency or expand artistic possibilities. The test pieces you create for evaluating new glazes or clay bodies require careful documentation of materials and procedures that enable successful techniques to be replicated while avoiding repetition of unsuccessful approaches. This experimental work contributes to the gradual advancement of ceramic knowledge that benefits entire craft communities. As darkness settles over your workshop and you clean the tools that will shape tomorrow's pottery projects, you pause to appreciate the profound satisfaction that comes from transforming Earth's raw materials into objects of beauty and utility that will serve human needs long after your own hands have stilled. Carrying forward the accumulated wisdom of countless generations of potters who understood clay's infinite potential for artistic expression, the gentle transition from solitary craftwork to social interaction brings you to the evening gathering of neighbourhood women, where conversations flow as smoothly as the herbal tea you share while participating in networks of feminine communication that operate as unofficial governments within patriarchal societies. The courtyard where you meet has been swept clean and decorated with oil lamps that create intimate lighting perfect for the delicate social negotiations that will determine everything from marriage arrangements to resource sharing agreements that affect entire extended families. Your arrival timing demonstrates understanding of the complex social hierarchies that govern these gatherings, where seating arrangements, speaking order, and even the quality of refreshments you contribute communicate information about your family's current status and future aspirations. The embroidered cushion you carry signals recent prosperity from your pottery sales, while the selection of honey cakes you've prepared indicates both hospitality and access to expensive imported ingredients that mark your household as economically stable and socially conscious. The women assembled here represent a cross-section of community leadership that wields influence through channels invisible to male administrators who assume they control all significant decision-making processes. The miller's wife manages grain distribution that affects food security for hundreds of families. The temple attendant influences religious policies that shape moral standards, and the midwife controls information about births, deaths, and family planning that determines population dynamics. Together, these women form an informal council whose collective decisions impact community welfare more directly than many official governmental proceedings. The conversational patterns that emerge follow sophisticated protocols that allow multiple complex topics to be addressed simultaneously, while maintaining social harmony and ensuring all participants feel heard and respected. Information sharing happens through carefully structured exchanges, where news about distant trade opportunities mingles with local gossip about family disputes. While advice about child-rearing techniques blends seamlessly with warnings about political developments that could affect community security, historians still argue whether women's social networks in ancient societies provided genuine empowerment or simply created illusions of influence that actually reinforced masculine control through indirect manipulation. But the documentary evidence suggests that feminine social organizations regularly achieved outcomes that formal political processes could not accomplish. The marriage negotiations conducted in these informal settings often prevented conflicts that could have escalated into family feuds or economic disputes threatening community stability. The problem-solving capabilities of collective feminine wisdom become apparent when discussing challenges that require creative solutions beyond the scope of traditional administrative approaches. The shortage of qualified teachers for young children gets addressed through cooperative arrangements where different women contribute specialized knowledge, one providing literacy instruction, another teaching arithmetic, and a third sharing practical skills like cooking and textile work. These educational collaborations produce better outcomes than individual families could achieve alone. Economic coordination happens through subtle agreements that redistribute resources according to need, while maintaining face-saving mechanisms that protect family dignity. The widow struggling to feed her children receives support through arrangements that appear to be normal business transactions, purchasing her needlework at premium prices, hiring her for household assistance that she doesn't really need, or including her family in feast preparations that provide legitimate opportunities for food sharing. These mechanisms ensure community welfare without creating obvious charity relationships that could undermine social standing. Information networks that span multiple communities allow coordination of activities across broader geographical areas than local governments typically manage effectively. The travelling merchants' wives carry messages between settlements, while religious pilgrims transport news about distant political developments and economic opportunities. Marriage connections create communication channels that link families across tribal and ethnic boundaries, facilitating trade relationships and diplomatic initiatives that transcend official governmental limitations. Conflict resolution techniques employed in these feminine gatherings often prove more effective than formal legal procedures for addressing disputes that involve personal relationships, family honour, or community values. The mediation skills that elder women have developed through decades of managing household conflicts enable them to identify underlying issues that formal courts might miss, while crafting solutions that satisfy emotional needs as well as practical requirements. These alternative dispute resolution methods preserve relationships that adversarial legal processes might permanently damage. Cultural preservation activities coordinated through women's networks ensure that traditional knowledge, artistic techniques, and moral values pass accurately to younger generations despite external pressures that might erode community identity. The storytelling sessions where elder women share historical narratives maintain collective memory about important events, while craft instruction preserves technical skills that sustain local economic independence. Recipe exchanges maintain food traditions that reflect cultural identity and provide nutritional knowledge adapted to local environmental conditions. Political influence operates through indirect channels, ways that affect official decision-making, without challenging masculine authority in ways that could provoke backlash against women's informal power structures. The suggestions whispered to husbands during private conversations shape policy positions that men subsequently present as their own ideas. While the social pressure created through women's networks can build consensus that makes certain political outcomes inevitable regardless of formal voting procedures. Marriage brokerage represents one of the most important functions of women's social networks, since successful matches require extensive knowledge about family backgrounds, economic prospects, personality compatibility, and social dynamics that only emerge through careful observation over extended periods. The matchmaking negotiations conducted in these gatherings balance romantic considerations with practical requirements for family alliances that strengthen community bonds while ensuring economic security for future generations. Child welfare coordination allows community women to monitor family situations and intervene when children face neglect, abuse, or educational deficiencies that parents might not recognize or address adequately. The informal supervision system created through women's networks provides early warning about problems that could affect child development while offering support services that help struggling families improve their parenting effectiveness. These child protection mechanisms often prove more responsive and less intrusive than formal social services. Religious coordination ensures that spiritual observances receive adequate community support while maintaining doctrinal consistency across different family traditions and generational perspectives. The women who organize festival preparations, coordinate temple maintenance, and manage religious education create unified community spiritual life that transcends individual family differences. Their theological discussions often influence religious practices more significantly than formal priestly deliberations. Healthcare coordination allows sharing of medical knowledge and herbal resources that improves community health outcomes while providing mutual support during illness episodes that could overwhelm individual families. The informal nursing networks that emerge during epidemic situations provide more comprehensive care than formal medical institutions could deliver, while the collective medical knowledge maintained through women's discussions preserves healing traditions that might otherwise disappear. Social innovation happens through collaborative experimentation with new approaches to persistent community problems, as women test alternative solutions in their own families before recommending broader adoption of successful techniques. The gradual improvements in child-rearing methods, household management, and social organization often originate in these feminine discussion groups where practical experience gets systematically evaluated and refined through collective analysis. Emotional support systems created through regular social interaction provide psychological resources that help women cope with the stresses of daily life while maintaining the emotional stability essential for effective family management. The friendships formed in these gatherings create safety nets that provide assistance during personal crises while offering celebration companionship during happy occasions. These emotional bonds contribute significantly to community social cohesion and individual mental health. As the evening progresses and conversations gradually shift from practical problem solving to more personal sharing about hopes, fears, and dreams that shape individual lives within the broader community context, you appreciate the profound importance of these feminine networks that create social fabric binding communities together through bonds of mutual support, shared wisdom, and collective responsibility for communal welfare that transcends individual family boundaries. The evening's social gathering gradually disperses as you transition into your role as educator, Returning home to where your own children and several neighbourhood youngsters await the reading lessons that will determine their future opportunities in a world where literacy remains the gateway to economic advancement and social mobility. The oil lamp you position carefully between yourself and your eager students creates optimal lighting conditions for examining the clay tablets containing the cuneiform texts that will unlock the mysteries of written communication, a skill so precious that kings guard their scribes as jealously as they protect their treasure rooms. Your teaching materials reflect the sophisticated educational philosophy that ancient civilizations developed for transmitting knowledge across generations, beginning with pictographic symbols that children can easily associate with familiar objects before progressing to abstract phonetic representations that enable reading any word in the spoken language. The progression from concrete to abstract thinking that guides your instruction follows principles that modern educational psychology has validated through extensive research into cognitive development patterns and optimal learning sequences. The student group assembled in your main room represents a carefully selected mix of ages and abilities that creates peer learning opportunities while ensuring that advanced students help younger ones master fundamental concepts. Your oldest pupil, a 12-year-old boy destined for scribal training, assists with teaching basic letter recognition, while your youngest student, a 6-year-old girl whose merchant father recognizes literacy's commercial value, struggles with holding the stylus properly for making clear marks in soft clay. Reading instruction begins with the creation of practice tablets using clay that has been prepared to optimal consistency for repeated use. Since writing materials represent significant expenses that must be conserved while providing adequate practice opportunities for skill development. The clay preparation process involves adding specific proportions of sand and organic materials that create surfaces firm enough to hold clear impressions while remaining soft enough for easy erasure and reuse. The recycling techniques you employ for practice materials should demonstrate the resource conservation essential for sustainable educational programs. The cuneiform writing system that your students master represents one of humanity's greatest intellectual achievements, encoding spoken language into visual symbols that can preserve information across time and distance with unprecedented accuracy and permanence. The wedge-shaped marks created by pressing reed styluses into clay tablets follow standardized patterns that trained scribes throughout the ancient world could read regardless of their spoken dialect differences. This writing system enabled administrative coordination, legal documentation, and literary preservation that made complex civilizations possible. Historians still argue whether ancient education was primarily practical job training or included broader intellectual development that encouraged critical thinking and creative expression. But the literary texts preserved in your teaching collection suggest that ancient educators valued both practical skills and cultural enrichment. The epic poems, historical chronicles, and mathematical treatises that advanced students study provide intellectual stimulation that develops reasoning abilities while transmitting cultural values and technical knowledge essential for civilized society. Mathematical instruction integrates seamlessly with literacy education, since ancient number systems required written notation for complex calculations involving trade transactions, agricultural planning, and architectural projects that sustained urban civilizations. The base 60 number system used in Mesopotamian mathematics enables sophisticated calculations with fractions and geometric relationships that modern students often find more elegant than decimal notation. Your teaching methods help students understand mathematical concepts through practical applications that demonstrate the relevance of abstract reasoning to daily life. Memory training techniques that you employ help students internalize vast quantities of information in societies where written materials remain too expensive for individual ownership outside wealthy households. The mnemonic devices you teach include rhythmic patterns, visual associations, and narrative structures that encode factual information within memorable frameworks that resist forgetting even after long periods without review. These memory enhancement methods enable students to carry comprehensive knowledge bases without dependence on external written resources, oral tradition. Preservation represents an equally important component of your educational responsibilities, since much cultural knowledge remains embedded in spoken narratives, songs, and ceremonial recitations that writing systems cannot adequately capture. The storytelling techniques you demonstrate help students develop performance skills that bring traditional tales to life while ensuring accurate transmission of historical information, moral teachings, and technical knowledge disguised as entertainment. This oral literature maintains cultural continuity across generations. Assessment methods that evaluate student progress include both formal examinations and informal observation of skill development that allows individualized instruction adapted to different learning styles and aptitude levels. The diagnostic techniques you use to identify reading difficulties enable early intervention that prevents learning problems from becoming permanent barriers to educational advancement. Your evaluation procedures balance encouragement with honest feedback that helps students understand their strengths, while recognizing areas requiring additional effort. Career guidance based on aptitude assessment helps families make informed decisions about educational investments that align with individual talents and economic opportunities available in their communities. The student who demonstrates exceptional mathematical abilities might benefit from advanced training in accounting or engineering, while another who excels at memorization and recitation could pursue religious or legal education that values those particular skills. Your counseling helps optimize educational resources while ensuring that community needs for various skilled professionals get adequately met. Social skills development happens naturally in educational settings where students from different family backgrounds interact regularly while pursuing common learning goals that require cooperation and mutual respect. The classroom management techniques you employ encourage collaborative learning, while maintaining discipline standards that prepare students for adult professional environments where teamwork and self-control determine success. These social learning opportunities often prove as valuable as academic content for future life success. Gender-inclusive education policies in your teaching practice ensure that both boys and girls receive quality instruction despite social expectations that might limit educational opportunities based on traditional gender roles. The girls in your classes often demonstrate superior attention to detail and consistent effort that produces excellent results in literacy training, while boys might excel in mathematical reasoning or physical activities that require different skill sets. Your teaching methods accommodate diverse learning preferences while challenging stereotypical assumptions about gender-based abilities. Advanced students who master basic literacy skills progress to specialized instruction in technical subjects that prepare them for professional careers, requiring sophisticated knowledge and analytical thinking. The legal texts that future court scribes must master require understanding complex grammatical structures and specialized vocabulary that general literacy training doesn't address adequately. Similarly, medical students need familiarity with anatomical terminology and pharmaceutical recipes that demand precise comprehension of technical language. Educational philosophy that guides your teaching practice emphasizes the development of reasoning abilities that enable students to apply their knowledge creatively to novel problems, rather than simply memorizing predetermined solutions to familiar questions. The Socratic questioning techniques you employ encourage students to think critically about information rather than accepting authority claims uncritically. This intellectual independence prepares students for leadership roles where innovative thinking becomes essential for addressing unprecedented challenges. Cultural literacy instruction ensures that students understand the historical context, religious beliefs, and social values that shape their civilization, while developing appreciation for the achievements of previous generations that created the foundation for contemporary prosperity. The historical narratives you teach help students understand how current institutions developed over time, while recognizing the ongoing importance of maintaining and improving social systems that support civilized life. Resource management for educational programs requires careful budgeting of materials, time, and energy that maximizes learning outcomes while remaining economically sustainable for families investing in their children's future. The fee structure you maintain balances accessibility for families with limited resources against the need for adequate compensation that enables you to dedicate sufficient time and attention to quality instruction. This economic balance ensures educational continuity while maintaining professional standards. As the evening lesson concludes and you watch your students carefully pack their practice tablets for home review, you reflect on the profound responsibility that educational work entails, shaping young minds that will carry forward the accumulated wisdom of human civilization while adapting that knowledge to meet the challenges and opportunities that await them in an uncertain but promising future. The stars emerging overhead signal the transition from education to nourishment as you move toward the cooking area where the day's final meal awaits preparation. Not just a simple feeding routine, but an elaborate culinary performance that transforms raw ingredients into the sophisticated flavors that would make modern food critics weep with envy. The glowing embers in your cooking hearth provide precisely controlled heat for the complex sequence of techniques that will create tonight's feast. Using methods passed down through generations of women who understood that proper nutrition required far more than merely consuming adequate calories. Your menu planning reflects understanding of nutritional principles that modern dietitians are only beginning to appreciate. Combining complementary proteins from grains and legumes to create complete amino acid profiles while balancing sweet, sour, salty, and bitter flavors that stimulate different aspects of digestion and metabolism. The lentils soaking in filtered water since morning will provide essential protein and fiber, while the barley that has been slowly fermenting creates complex carbohydrates that sustain energy levels throughout the night and into tomorrow's demanding work schedule. The spice collection that guides your culinary artistry represents one of the world's first global economies, with aromatic treasures that travelled thousands of miles through networks of merchants who risk their lives crossing deserts, mountains, and dangerous seas to bring these precious flavour enhancers to your kitchen. The black pepper from distant India costs more per ounce than silver, while the cinnamon bark from Ceylon carries within its cellular structure the concentrated essence of tropical forests that most people in your region will never see but can taste through your carefully crafted dishes. Preparation techniques that you employ demonstrate sophisticated understanding of food chemistry that enables transformation of simple ingredients into complex culinary experiences that satisfy both nutritional needs and aesthetic desires. The bread dough you prepared this morning has undergone controlled fermentation that develops flavors while breaking down proteins and carbohydrates into more digestible forms. The cheese aging in your cool storage area represents controlled bacterial action that concentrates nutrients while creating the rich, complex tastes that elevate simple milk into gourmet ingredients. Fire management requires precise temperature control achieved through understanding combustion principles and fuel selection that creates optimal cooking conditions for different culinary techniques. The hardwood coals that provide steady, intense heat for roasting meat burn cleanly, without producing smoke that could contaminate food flavors. while the softer wood used for slow simmering provides gentle, consistent temperatures perfect for developing the rich broths that form the foundation of sophisticated sauces and gravies. Historians still argue whether ancient cooking represented purely practical nutrition or included aesthetic considerations that elevated food preparation to artistic levels. But the elaborate serving vessels and detailed recipes preserved in ancient texts suggest that culinary sophistication reached remarkable heights in prosperous households where cooking became a respected craft requiring years of training to master completely. The presentation techniques you employ demonstrate understanding that visual appeal enhances both psychological satisfaction and actual digestive efficiency. The olive oil that provides the foundation for many of your cooking techniques comes from trees that your family has tended for generations, following agricultural practices that optimize both fruit production and oil quality through careful attention to pruning, irrigation, and harvest timing. The pressing techniques used to extract oil from ripe olives determine flavor characteristics and storage stability that affect culinary applications months after harvest. Your selection of different oil grades for various cooking purposes demonstrates sophisticated understanding of how processing methods influence final product characteristics. Fermentation processes that enhance both flavor and nutritional value represent some of humanity's earliest biotechnology applications, using beneficial bacteria and yeasts to transform simple ingredients into complex foods with improved digestibility and extended storage life. The wine that accompanies tonight's meal results from controlled fermentation that converts grape sugars into alcohol while developing the complex flavor compounds that distinguish fine wines from simple fermented fruit juice. The vinegar used in salad dressings represents further fermentation that creates acidic flavors essential for proper mineral absorption. Seasonal menu adaptation ensures that your family receives optimal nutrition throughout the year, while taking advantage of ingredients at peak freshness and availability. The root vegetables stored in your underground cellar provide essential vitamins during winter months when fresh produce becomes scarce, while the preserved meats and dried fruits extend seasonal abundance into leaner periods. Your food preservation techniques include smoking and salting and controlled drying that maintain nutritional value while preventing spoilage through natural antimicrobial processes. Cooking vessel selection reflects understanding of how different materials affect heat transfer, flavor development, and chemical interactions that influence both cooking efficiency and food safety. The bronze pots used for acidic foods avoid the metallic flavors that iron vessels might impart, while clay cookware provides even heat distribution perfect for slow cooking techniques that develop complex flavors through extended cooking times. The seasoning of cooking surfaces through repeated use creates natural non-stick properties that improve cooking performance while adding subtle flavor enhancements. Herb cultivation in your kitchen garden provides fresh seasonings that enhance both flavor and medicinal properties of your culinary creations. Since ancient cooks understood that many herbs contained compounds that aided digestion, prevented foodborne illness, and provided therapeutic benefits beyond simple taste enhancement. The timing of herb harvesting coordinates with lunar cycles that affect essential oil concentrations, while proper drying and storage techniques preserve aromatic compounds that maintain potency throughout winter months when fresh herbs become unavailable. Water quality management represents a crucial aspect of food safety that requires understanding sources, purification techniques, and storage methods that prevent contamination while maintaining the mineral content essential for proper flavor development and nutritional balance. The well water used for cooking has been filtered through sand and charcoal layers that remove harmful bacteria while preserving beneficial minerals that contribute to both health and taste. The ceramic vessels used for water storage prevent contamination while allowing gradual cooling through evaporation. Menu timing coordination ensures that complex dishes requiring different cooking methods and preparation times all reach optimal readiness simultaneously, requiring mathematical calculations and practical experience that rivals modern restaurant kitchen management in its complexity. The roasted lamb that needs several hours of slow cooking must be started early enough to finish properly, while the fresh vegetables that lose nutritional value and flavour with overcooking require precise timing to achieve perfect texture without becoming mushy or losing their vibrant colours. Food safety protocols that you follow prevent contamination and spoilage through understanding bacterial growth patterns, temperature requirements, and hygiene practices that protect family health while maintaining food quality. The cutting boards used for different ingredients prevent cross-contamination between raw and cooked foods, while proper hand washing with soap made from plant saponins eliminates harmful microorganisms that could cause serious illness. Food storage temperatures and humidity levels are carefully controlled to prevent spoilage, while maintaining optimal flavour and nutritional characteristics. Guest hospitality traditions require preparing quantities and varieties of food that demonstrate respect for visitors, while showcasing your family's prosperity and culinary sophistication. The entertainment meals you prepare for special occasions include multiple courses that balance different flavours, textures, and cooking techniques while ensuring adequate quantities for generous servings. These elaborate presentations require advanced planning, extensive preparation, and considerable expense that represents significant investment in social relationships and community standing. Nutritional balance in ancient diets relied on empirical understanding of how different food combinations affected health, energy levels, and disease resistance, creating dietary principles that modern nutritional science has largely validated through laboratory research. The combination of grains, legumes, vegetables, and modest amounts of meat or dairy that characterizes your family's diet provides complete nutrition while avoiding the excesses that could lead to obesity or metabolic disorders that affect wealthy households with unlimited access to rich foods. As the aromatic clouds rising from your cooking pots fill the evening air with promises of culinary satisfaction, you pause to appreciate the transformation you've accomplished, converting simple agricultural products into the complex flavors that nourish both body and soul, while creating the shared meal experiences that bind families together through the universal pleasure of exceptional food prepared with skill, knowledge, and love. The delicious aromas wafting from your evening feast create the perfect backdrop for your transition to the intimate ritual of beauty preparation as you move toward the polished bronze mirror that reflects not just your physical appearance but thousands of years of feminine wisdom about enhancing natural beauty through techniques that would astonish modern cosmetic scientists with their sophistication and effectiveness. The collection of clay pots, bone implements, and precious oils arranged on your dressing table represents a personal laboratory where alchemy transforms simple natural ingredients into cosmetic preparations that rival contemporary products in their complexity and surpass them in their purity. Your beauty routine begins with the careful removal of the day's accumulation of dust, cooking smoke, and temple incense, using cleansing techniques that balance thorough purification with preservation of the natural oils that protect skin from environmental damage. The olive oil soap you've prepared using ash from specific plants creates a gentle cleanser that removes impurities without stripping away protective lipids, while the warm water infused with chamomile and rose petals provides soothing aromatherapy that begins the psychological transition from day's responsibilities to evening's more personal concerns. The kohl that you apply around your eyes serves multiple functions that extend far beyond mere aesthetic enhancement, providing practical protection against desert glare while creating the dramatic eye definition that ancient artists captured in countless sculptures and paintings. The antimony and galena minerals ground into fine powder for your coal preparation actually do protect against bacterial infections that could cause serious eye problems, while the precise application techniques you've mastered create symmetrical lines that enhance your natural eye shape according to mathematical proportions that artists still use to define ideal beauty. Your cosmetic preparations reflect understanding of dermatological principles that modern skincare science has validated through laboratory research. Using natural ingredients that provide genuine therapeutic benefits while avoiding the synthetic chemicals that can cause allergic reactions or long-term health problems. The honey-based face mask you apply weekly contains natural antibacterial compounds that prevent acne, while providing gentle exfoliation that removes dead skin cells and promotes cellular renewal. The rosewater toner that follows helps restore optimal pH balance, while delivering antioxidant compounds that protect against environmental damage. Historians still argue whether ancient beauty practices empowered women by enhancing their attractiveness and social influence, or simply reinforced oppressive standards that reduced feminine value to physical appearance. But the complexity and expense of cosmetic preparations suggest that beauty work represented significant personal investment in social capital that could provide genuine advantages in societies where physical appeal influenced marriage prospects, social standing, and economic opportunities. Hair care routines that you follow demonstrate sophisticated understanding of hair structure and growth patterns that enables maintenance of healthy, lustrous locks despite environmental challenges that could cause serious damage to inadequately protected hair. The weekly oil treatments using warmed sesame and almond oils penetrate hair shafts to provide deep conditioning that strengthens protein structures while adding flexibility that prevents breakage. The herbal rinses prepared from nettle, rosemary, and sage provide natural cleansing while stimulating circulation that promotes healthy growth. The henna preparations that you use for nail decoration and hair colouring represent some of humanity's earliest cosmetic chemistry, using plant compounds that bond with keratin proteins to create lasting colour effects that fade gradually without causing the dramatic grow-out lines that characterise modern synthetic dyes. The intricate patterns you paint on your fingernails using fine brushes made from cat whiskers require artistic skill that rivals professional nail artists, while the temporary tattoos created with henna paste provide body decoration that signals cultural identity and personal style preferences. Perfume creation involves blending aromatic oils and plant essences according to the formulas that balance top notes, middle notes, and base notes in harmonious combinations that evolve throughout the day as different compounds evaporate at varying rates. The jasmine flowers that you gather at dawn when their fragrance peaks provide intense floral notes that combine beautifully with the woody base notes extracted from sandalwood and cedar. The alcohol used to suspend these aromatic compounds comes from wine distillation processes that concentrate fragrant molecules while creating stable solutions that preserve scent integrity. Skin protection strategies that you employ include understanding how different environmental factors affect complexion health and developing protective measures that prevent damage while maintaining the pale complexion that ancient societies associated with refinement and leisure. The parasols you carry during market visits shield skin from UV radiation that could cause premature aging, while the protective creams made from zinc oxide and plant oils provide physical barriers against wind and dust that could irritate sensitive facial skin. Colour coordination between cosmetics, clothing, and jewellery demonstrates understanding of visual harmony principles that create cohesive aesthetic presentations worthy of artistic analysis. The blue coal that complements your lapis lazuli earrings creates colour echoes that tie together different elements of your appearance, while the red ochre used for lip and cheek colour coordinates with the terracotta patterns woven into your evening robe. These colour relationships follow artistic principles that painters and designers still use to create visually pleasing compositions. The tools used for cosmetic application require precision manufacturing that produces implements capable of creating fine lines, smooth gradations, and precise colour placement that professional makeup artists would recognise as essential for quality results. The ivory cosmetic spoons carved for measuring and mixing preparations demonstrate understanding that consistent proportions are essential for reproducible results, while the bronze tweezers used for eyebrow shaping provide the precise control necessary for creating symmetrical hair removal without skin damage. Seasonal beauty adjustments accommodate changing and environmental conditions that affect skin and hair health throughout the year, requiring different protective strategies and cosmetic formulations that address weather-related challenges. Winter conditions that create dry air and cold temperatures require richer moisturizing treatments and protective barriers, while summer heat and humidity demand lighter formulations that won't clog pores or cause makeup to deteriorate under challenging conditions. Anti-aging treatments available through your cosmetic knowledge include ingredients that modern dermatology has validated as effective for maintaining youthful appearance and preventing premature aging caused by environmental damage and natural cellular deterioration. The retinol compounds found in certain plant oils provide gentle chemical exfoliation that promotes cellular turnover, while the antioxidant properties of grapeseed oil and green tea extracts protect against free radical damage that accelerates visible aging processes. Social signaling through cosmetic choices communicates information about your family's economic status, cultural affiliations, and personal values to community members who understand the symbolic meanings embedded in beauty practices. The quality of pigments you use indicates access to expensive trade goods, while the sophistication of your application techniques suggests education and leisure time that marks your household as prosperous enough to invest in aesthetic pursuits beyond basic survival needs. Special occasion. Beauty preparation requires advanced techniques and premium materials that create dramatic effects appropriate for festivals, religious ceremonies, and important social events where appearance plays crucial roles in successful participation. The gold leaf that you apply to create highlight effects on special occasions represents significant expense that demonstrates respect for the importance of the event, while the elaborate hairstyles that require hours of braiding and ornamentation show dedication to proper ceremonial presentation. Beauty knowledge transmission happens through careful instruction of younger women who need to master these techniques before marriage and social independence, ensuring that cosmetic wisdom passes accurately to future generations while adapting to changing fashion trends and available materials. The apprentice system for beauty education parallels other craft training programs, with experienced practitioners sharing their knowledge while developing the next generation of skilled cosmeticians. As you complete the final touches of tonight's beauty routine, applying the precious perfume that will accompany you through evening's remaining activities, you pause before your bronze mirror to appreciate the transformation you've accomplished, not just enhancing your physical appearance, but participating in ancient traditions that connect you to countless generations of women who understood that beauty represents one form of personal power that can open doors, create opportunities, and express individual creativity within the constraints of social expectations. The completion of your beauty rituals signals the transition to perhaps your most crucial daily responsibility, managing the complex financial systems that sustain your household's prosperity and secure your family's position within the broader economic networks that bind ancient civilizations together through relationships of mutual dependence and carefully calculated trust. The wooden chest containing your accounting materials opens to reveal clay tablets, bronze counting tools, and samples of various currencies that represent wealth accumulated through months of careful planning, shrewd negotiation, and meticulous record-keeping that would impress modern financial professionals with its sophistication. Your accounting system employs mathematical principles that enable tracking multiple income sources, expense categories, and investment opportunities simultaneously while maintaining the detailed records necessary for tax obligations, legal documentation, and strategic planning that determines your family's long-term economic trajectory. The cuneiform notations covering your accounting tablets record not just numerical transactions but also contextual information about market conditions, trading partner reliability, and seasonal variations that affect the value of different commodities throughout the year. The currency collection that you manage includes silver pieces from local mints, copper tokens used for small transactions, grain measures that serve as stored value during harvest seasons, and lengths of high-quality textiles that function as portable wealth in regions where metallic money remains scarce or suspect. Your expertise in evaluating these different monetary instruments requires understanding exchange rates, authenticity verification techniques, and storage methods that preserve value while preventing theft or deterioration that could wipe out months of accumulated savings. Household budget planning requires balancing immediate consumption needs against long-term investment opportunities while maintaining emergency reserves that can sustain your family through crop failures, political disruptions, or health crises that could temporarily eliminate income sources. The allocation strategies you employ demonstrate understanding of risk management principles that financial advisors still use to optimize resource distribution across different asset categories. Your calculations include provisions for religious obligations, social reciprocity requirements, and unexpected opportunities that could enhance family prosperity. Historians still argue whether ancient women possessed genuine financial authority or simply managed household expenses under masculine oversight. But the complexity of surviving financial records and the extensive commercial legal codes protecting women's property rights suggests that female economic participation extended far beyond domestic bookkeeping into sophisticated business operations that required substantial financial expertise and decision-making autonomy. Your investment choices affect not just household welfare, but broader community economic development. Trade relationship management involves maintaining ongoing business connections with suppliers, customers, and business partners whose reliability and competence directly influence your family's economic success and social standing. The merchant who provides spices for your cooking and medicinal needs must be evaluated not just for product quality and competitive pricing, but also for creditworthiness, delivery reliability, and discretion regarding your family's financial information. These business relationships will often span generations and require diplomatic skills that balance friendship with commercial necessity. Investment. Diversification strategies that you employ include allocating resources across different economic sectors and geographical regions to minimize risks while maximizing returns on accumulated capital. The livestock investments that provide ongoing income through milk, wool, and breeding opportunities complement your agricultural holdings that generate seasonal income through crop sales. The urban property that you rent to craftsmen provides steady monthly income while appreciating in value as your city grows and prospers. Credit management requires understanding interest rates, collateral requirements, and repayment schedules that govern lending and borrowing arrangements essential for maintaining adequate cash flow through seasonal business cycles. The loans you extend to neighbours during difficult periods generate interest income while building social capital that could prove valuable during your own future difficulties. Similarly, the credit lines you maintain with established merchants provide flexibility for large purchases while demonstrating your creditworthiness to the broader business community. Tax planning involves understanding the complex obligations that your household owes to religious institutions, political authorities, and community organizations while identifying legitimate strategies for minimizing these payments without violating legal requirements or social expectations. The temple tithe, that represents a significant portion of your income, serves religious obligations while providing social insurance through institutional support during emergencies. Military taxes that support community defense represent investments in political stability that protects all other economic activities. Quality control procedures that you apply to financial management include regular auditing of accounts, verification of transaction records, and evaluation of investment performance that ensures optimal resource utilization, while identifying potential problems before they become serious threats to family financial security. The monthly reconciliation process, where you compare actual income and expenses against budgeted projections, reveals trends that inform future planning decisions while identifying discrepancies that could indicate accounting errors or fraudulent activity. Market analysis skills enable you to anticipate price fluctuations, supply shortages, and demand changes that create opportunities for profitable investments while avoiding commitments that could result in significant losses. The information networks that you maintain through women's social groups provide intelligence about distant market conditions, upcoming political developments, and weather patterns that could affect agricultural production and commodity prices throughout the region. Insurance concepts that ancient societies developed include mutual aid agreements, stored value systems, and risk-sharing arrangements that provide protection against catastrophic losses while distributing costs across multiple participants. The grain storage cooperative that your family participates in ensures food security during famine years, while providing investment returns during abundant harvests. These risk management strategies demonstrate sophisticated understanding of insurance principles that modern financial systems have refined but not fundamentally altered. Estate planning involves preparing for wealth transfer to future generations, while ensuring adequate provision for your own old age support and potential widowhood situations that could dramatically alter your financial circumstances. The property arrangements that you establish with adult children balance their need for economic independence against your requirements for ongoing security. Legal documentation of these arrangements prevents family disputes, while ensuring smooth transitions that preserve accumulated wealth. Commercial law knowledge that your financial management requires includes understanding contract requirements, dispute resolution procedures, and enforcement mechanisms that protect your interests in complex business transactions involving multiple parties and substantial sums. The partnership agreements that govern your textile business ventures specify a profit sharing, responsibility allocation, and dissolution procedures that protect all participants while ensuring productive cooperation. Banking services available in ancient societies include secure storage facilities, money-changing operations, and long-distance transfer mechanisms that enable sophisticated financial transactions despite the absence of modern banking infrastructure. The temple treasuries that provide secure storage for valuable items charge fees that reflect their costs, while offering services that individual households could not provide independently. These proto-banking institutions enable economic activities that would be impossible without trusted financial intermediaries. Retirement planning requires accumulating sufficient assets to maintain acceptable living standards during periods when age or health limitations reduce earning capacity, while ensuring that accumulated wealth remains accessible despite changing physical capabilities. The rental properties that provide ongoing income streams offer more security than business ventures that require active management. While stored precious metals provide liquidity for unexpected expenses, that fixed income sources might not cover adequately. Economic education for younger family members includes teaching financial literacy, business skills, and investment principles that will enable them to manage their own economic affairs successfully while building upon the foundation that previous generations have established. The apprenticeship arrangements that you negotiate for your children balance their educational needs against the family's requirements for ongoing economic contribution and future security. As you complete tonight's financial review and carefully store your accounting materials in secure containers that protect these valuable records from theft, fire, or moisture damage, you reflect on the profound responsibility that economic management entails, stewarding resources that represent not just current family welfare, but the foundation for future generations' prosperity and the broader community relationships that depend upon your household's continued economic success and social contribution. The final transition of your ancient day brings you to the most intimate and culturally significant activities that bind communities together across time and space: the evening traditions of storytelling, music, and spiritual reflection that transform ordinary households into living repositories of human wisdom and cultural memory. The oil lamps that you light around your main room create a sacred circle of warm illumination that separates this special time from the practical concerns of daily life, establishing a threshold between the material world of work and commerce and the ethereal realm where stories carry souls across generations and melodies weave connections between mortal experiences and eternal truths. Your preparation for evening's cultural activities involves gathering the instruments, texts, and ritual objects that facilitate the ancient arts of oral tradition and musical expression, skills that modern societies have largely abandoned in favour of passive entertainment consumption, but which ancient peoples understood as essential for psychological health, social cohesion, and spiritual development. The wooden flute carved from seasoned olive wood resonates with tones that seem to emerge from the earth itself, while the small clay drums provide rhythmic foundations that synchronize heartbeats and breathing patterns among listeners, creating physiological harmony that enhances emotional and spiritual receptivity. The stories you prepare to share tonight include epic narratives that preserve historical memory, moral tales that transmit ethical principles, and mythological accounts that encode sophisticated understanding of psychological and spiritual development disguised as supernatural adventures. The tale of Inanna's descent into the underworld that you've memorized through years of practice contains layers of meaning that reveal different insights depending on the listener's age, experience, and spiritual development, functioning simultaneously as entertainment for children, psychological guidance for adolescents, and profound spiritual instruction for mature adults seeking deeper understanding of life's mysteries. Your storytelling technique employs vocal modulation, gesture coordination, and dramatic timing that transforms simple narrative recitation into immersive theatrical experiences that engage listeners' imaginations while transmitting complex information through memorable emotional associations. The character voices you create for different mythological figures help audiences distinguish between speakers while embodying personality traits that illustrate moral principles and psychological dynamics. Your hand movements and facial expressions provide visual reinforcement that helps listeners visualize scenes and remember important details long after the telling concludes. The musical interludes that accompany narrative sections serve multiple functions beyond mere entertainment, using specific melodic patterns and rhythmic structures that induce altered states of consciousness, conducive to deeper learning and spiritual insight. The pentatonic scales that characterize ancient melodies create harmonic relationships that resonate with natural brainwave frequencies associated with creativity, intuition, and mystical experience. These musical elements transform storytelling from intellectual exercise into a holistic educational experience that engages multiple sensory channels simultaneously. Historians still argue whether ancient oral traditions preserved accurate historical information or simply perpetuated mythological fantasies that bore little relationship to actual events. But archaeological discoveries increasingly confirm that epic narratives and traditional tales contain remarkably accurate details about historical events, geographical features, and cultural practices that predated written records by centuries. Your stories serve as living libraries that maintain cultural knowledge across generations while adapting to changing circumstances that require new interpretations of ancient wisdom. The audience participation that you encourage during tonight's performance creates interactive learning experiences that engage listeners as active contributors rather than passive recipients of cultural transmission. The call and response sections, where listeners provide familiar refrains, help maintain attention while ensuring that important cultural knowledge gets internalized through repetitive practice. The opportunities for audience members to contribute their own stories, songs, or interpretive comments create democratic cultural spaces where wisdom flows multidirectionally rather than simply from elder to younger generations. Children's responses to storytelling reveal the natural human capacity for symbolic thinking and moral reasoning that ancient educators understood could be developed through systematic exposure to carefully crafted narratives that gradually increase in complexity and sophistication. The simple animal fables that capture young attention contain sophisticated lessons about cooperation, consequences, and character development that provide ethical foundations for adult decision-making. Your observations of how different children respond to various story elements help you adapt future performances to maximize educational impact. The spiritual dimensions of evening cultural activities include prayers, meditations, and ritual observances that connect household members to larger cosmic rhythms and divine forces that govern natural cycles and human affairs. The incense that you burn during these spiritual practices contains aromatic compounds that alter consciousness in measurable ways, creating psychological conditions conducive to transcendent experiences and mystical insights. These spiritual exercises provide meaning and purpose that sustain individuals through difficult periods while building community solidarity around shared beliefs and values. Musical improvisation skills that you demonstrate during instrumental interludes reveal the sophisticated understanding of harmonic principles and rhythmic relationships that ancient musicians developed through intensive training and extensive practice. The melodic variations that you create spontaneously within traditional song structures demonstrate creative abilities that balance innovation with respect for cultural conventions. These improvisational elements keep familiar songs fresh while allowing personal expression within established frameworks. Cultural preservation efforts that happen through evening gatherings include systematic transmission of traditional knowledge, artistic techniques, and moral principles that maintain community identity despite external pressures that could erode cultural distinctiveness. The language preservation that occurs through storytelling and singing maintains vocabulary, grammatical structures, and pronunciation patterns that might otherwise disappear under the influence of dominant cultures or technological changes that alter communication patterns. Memory enhancement techniques that ancient peoples developed for preserving vast quantities of cultural information include associative methods, rhythmic patterns, and narrative structures that encode complex knowledge within memorable frameworks resistant to forgetting even after extended periods without review. The epic poems that you've memorized contain thousands of lines of text that preserve historical information, geographical knowledge, and technical instruction within entertaining stories that make learning feel effortless and enjoyable. Community bonding that results from shared cultural experiences creates social cohesion that strengthens group identity while providing mutual support networks that enhance individual resilience and collective security. The emotional connections formed through shared laughter, tears, and wonder during storytelling sessions build relationships that transcend family boundaries while creating extended communities united by common cultural experiences and values. Therapeutic applications of music and storytelling include treatment for emotional disorders, trauma recovery, and social adjustment problems that affect individual well-being and community harmony. The specific song cycles used for healing purposes incorporate melodic and rhythmic patterns that modern music therapy research has validated as effective for treating depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorders. The narrative therapy techniques embedded in traditional healing stories provide frameworks for understanding and resolving psychological conflicts. As the evening progresses and the oil lamps burn lower, casting dancing shadows that seem to give life to the stories themselves, you gradually slow your pace and soften your voice, allowing the magical atmosphere that has been building throughout the performance to settle gently around your listeners like a warm blanket of shared memory and cultural connection. The transition from active storytelling to quiet reflection mirrors the natural rhythm of consciousness, moving from external engagement toward internal processing, creating optimal conditions for integrating the evening's cultural experiences into personal knowledge and understanding. The final blessing that you speak over your household acknowledges the sacred nature of cultural transmission while expressing gratitude for the opportunity to participate in the ancient chain of wisdom that connects your generation to countless previous generations and forward to unknown future generations who will carry these stories and songs into times and places that you can only imagine. Your voice becomes barely a whisper as you extinguish the lamps one by one, allowing natural darkness to reclaim the room, while the echoes of tonight's music and stories continue resonating in minds and hearts that will carry forward the living flame of human culture through whatever challenges and opportunities await in the mysterious future that stretches beyond the horizon of mortal vision into realms where stories never die and songs continue forever. As the final lamp flickers and dies, leaving only the gentle glow of dying embers in your hearth, you settle into the soft embrace of your sleeping mat, your body exhausted but your spirit filled with the deep satisfaction that comes from a day lived in harmony with ancient rhythms that have sustained human civilization for countless generations. The soft breathing of your sleeping family creates a gentle symphony that mingles with distant night sounds, the whisper of wind through grain fields, the distant call of night birds, and the subtle settling sounds of your home preparing for rest. Your mind drifts peacefully through the memories of this day, the sacred morning rituals that connected you to divine forces, the careful craftsmanship that transformed raw materials into objects of beauty and utility, the social interactions that wove your family more deeply into community fabric, and the cultural activities that preserved ancient wisdom for future generations. Each activity flowed naturally into the next, creating a seamless tapestry of purpose and meaning that modern life rarely achieves despite all its technological conveniences and material abundance. As sleep begins to claim your consciousness, You feel yourself becoming part of the eternal cycle that connects all women across time and culture, those who came before you and struggled with similar challenges, those who will come after you and face new difficulties with wisdom learned from your example. Ooh. Your dreams begin to form from the day's experiences, weaving together practical memories with spiritual insights, creating the unconscious processing that will prepare you for tomorrow's opportunities and challenges. The darkness that surrounds you is not empty but full of potential, pregnant with the possibilities that await each new dawn. Somewhere in the distance, another woman like yourself is beginning her day, lighting her first lamp, greeting the sunrise with ancient prayers, preparing to take up the sacred work of sustaining human civilization through the simple yet profound acts of daily life performed with skill, wisdom, and love. The circle continues, unbroken, eternal, carrying forth